So kudos to that kiddo being able to stay asleep with all the noise going around,
Right. Yeah.
confetti. That kid was knocked out. You must have had some good milk before, the end of the
Yeah.
game to stay asleep that way.
Right.
Um, a lot of people sort of didn't like it because of the story. It did slow down quite a bit, not as much zombie chasing, zombie features. And the few zombie features that they did have, a lot of people are complaining about that third leg. And if you've seen the clips, you've seen exactly what it is. And
Kind of a valid way to look at it. I hate to
Mhm.
say it, but he is a compiler.
Yeah,
Frank Gore of the NBA? No, it's too
maybe
late.
is this a sign that Chet might be a good trade asset right now?
Talked about it.
Giannis,
Uh-huh.
Giannis. Yeah, like I say, why are you picking up two centers when you already have two?
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another wonderful episode of Banter on the Rocks. Today's Monday, June 23rd. Have myself, Tim, here, as well as John. And before we move on to our topics of the day, first order of business, we wanted to discuss our brand ambassadorship with Find the Good brand. Find the Good is focused on the good and building a community of people who want to help find that good. For all purchases, Find the Good gives back 10% to Mental Health of America organization. And when you order, use our promo code BANTER805 and you'll receive 10% off of your purchase. So that's 10% for you and 10% back to mental health. Remember to use BANTER805 for 10% off. The mission for Find the Good is simple. Find the Good is here to get you through the bad days, the breakups, the ups and downs, and whatever else stands in front of you and a smile on your face. And yeah, moving along here
Hmm.
into today's topics. We're, of course, going to start with our banter takes, move into NBA discussions. Really, we had the
Hmm.
NBA finals come to a close, and have some trade talk, possibilities of trades in the future, and some other news that's trending with the NBA. And then we're going to discuss movie recaps. John went to, see a movie over this past weekend. Certainly want to hear what he has to say about that. Maybe talk some TV
Hmm.
shows in there as well. And then, of course, much more. Now, to get us started on our banter drinks of the week, I will get us started. It feels like a zillion degrees outside here, John. It is toasty. I'm
Nice.
sticking with a cold, refreshing drink. I'm sticking with rum. This rum is the
Okay.
the vibe right now for me, and I'm
Nice.
doing rum mixed with like a raspberry lemonade.
Okay.
I don't know, just whatever fruity stuff here I can find, John,
Whatever you
and
were
I'm
able
just
to find.
repping it. Pretty much. It tastes
Yeah.
great though. It's a good combo.
No. No, yeah, that's a good one. I am sticking to what I normally have, some guava juice with tequila. Same here. It's getting a lot warmer. Summer's coming, so stay cool out there. Stay cool up there. If you're feeling it up there, we're feeling it down here.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, yeah. It's hot up here. It's definitely hot down there.
Yeah,
No
no,
doubt
for
about
sure.
that.
But yeah, but
Um,
we'll continue and we'll go into our first take and as always, we do go on TikTok live. Um, just do our little show on there for everybody to join us, and I'll get started. So as always, our banter takes, these are takes we haven't seen prior. They're takes we're gonna roll with, discuss, banter, or agree on. And my first take that Tim sent me, a recent MIT study has completed early studies that show users are getting lazier the more they use the app. Um, Yeah, I think technology altogether has made society a little lazier because everything is at your fingertips. Um, with any app, TikTok, you could look up food recipes, you could look up, how to do XYZ. YouTube, a lot of people use YouTube for, you know, fixing things, home stuff, and at times also, DoorDash, things like that. It makes you a little lazier. You don't go out to you have it delivered at home. So, um, I think as technology has progressed, people have been getting lazier, not doing as much, not going out as much, and um, it's something I think I'll say I'm probably one also that has gotten a little lazier with these apps just because it's so convenient. But I think we have to work on getting on that mindset of not letting it take over our life and still take care of ourselves, health wise. Because even though it's so great to have things at your fingertip, it's taken away from stuff. So. Yeah, it's pretty cool that MIT has done the study. Um, does it give numbers, Tim, of like percentage or what the trends have been that they've seen?
Yeah, it did. Hold on. Let me look it back up. What I can say is that, kind of like I guess an example that they had was, just people writing essays.
Hmm.
The more that they wrote the essays or completed the essays through ChatGPT was, the less information they wanted to provide in order to complete that essay. Like literally,
Okay, yeah.
they have something completing the essay for them,
Yeah.
but they just want to provide less and less output, or input
Hmm.
to
Okay.
ChatGPT in order to complete that. So, it's like, obviously ChatGPT is a great tool, helps with, you name it, quite a bit,
Hmm.
in everyday life. It's nice to have, but at the same time, I guess they're kind of correlating it to um impacts of long-term intelligence as well. And they're saying in the long run, it could affect, the younger population.
Hmm.
And by the time they get older, they'll know a little bit less because they've had, kind of like a free handout, for lack of a
Yeah.
better word, of, not going through and studying and actually gathering information and, completing it on their own.
Hmm.
Um, let me see. So they divided 54 subjects, so 54 individuals between 18 and 39 years old from the Boston area, and asked them to write several SAT essays using OpenAI's ChatGPT, a Google search engine, and nothing at all. And then I guess through comparison, um, over the course of several months, they found that ChatGPT users got lazier with each subsequent essay, often resorting to copy and paste by the end of the study.
Dang.
So
Okay.
it kind of, yeah, correlated in that way. And then um I'll keep reading here. Do you have any other thoughts on ChatGPT, like maybe the
So
bad?
and I think we've talked about it. I think we talked about it with our Armando, one of our
Hmm.
past guests, one of our buddies, and also Rob. And ChatGPT is a great tool, but I think that was sort of the subject we touched upon with Armando specifically is like, how is it going to hurt the youth of today? Because if you ha ask ChatGPT to write you an essay about a book that you're supposed to read and write a report on it, it'll give you a full on, essays report. So what are the youth really learning? Are they actually reading it? And, how are they using it? Because I think that was a big thing we said. It's like, use it for your benefit, but don't just rely on it because if you just rely on it, you're not going to learn. It is getting lazier. Use it to help you develop a paper, use some of the facts, but still put in your own words, your own work, just in general to to get there. Because, like I say, I think Chat GPT is a great tool because I think of it as Google, but just more high tech. Because I think when Google first came out, we were all like, "What is this?" And then we all were using it like, "Oh, how do you make pasta?" Or how do you fix, you know, uh, the dryer? No heat's coming out of the dryer. And it'll bring up a lot of sites and give you videos, whatever it is. But ChatGPT, AI now gives you like the step by step. You just have to ask ChatGPT, like, hey, how do I fix this GE dryer? And it'll tell you, okay, go, this is step one, step two, and Like how you use it is really, I think, what's going to be the big piece. And like you mentioned, the study from MIT, if they're by the end they're just copying and pasting it, it shows that it's just they're just lazy, not really learning, not really thinking about the subject, and just having someone else do it.
Yeah, exactly right. And like you said, there's a ton, a zillion different great reasons
Hmm.
that Chat GPT is out there. But they're talking about, especially in the younger populations, how, you know, it, the lack of needing to memorize a
Hmm.
certain topic, all of that cognitive skill that kind of obtain through studying,
Yeah.
memorization, it's all going to be lost in the long run. And
Hmm.
they're saying that, that I guess those parts of the brain are going to be weaker over time. And it makes sense. But then
Hmm.
also, it leads to another point of like, AI taking jobs in the future.
Hmm.
This is just going to be more of a reason as to why big companies are going to go towards, AI
Yeah. Hmm.
for employees versus, humans,
Yeah.
for certain things because I guess, knowledge and reliability in that sense,
Yeah.
is a big deal. So, you know, hopefully schools can limit, I don't know, electronic laptop usage in
Yeah.
the future to kind of assist in, bringing back, the building blocks of having a healthy brain and
Yeah.
um, building a brain, for the future.
Hmm.
Not saying that, you can't memorize things that ChatGPT is giving you, but,
Hmm.
I just think thinking on your own at certain times in
Yeah.
life is going to be really important. So, I think it all kind of correlates and brings up, that bigger image of what does the future hold.
Hmm.
But yeah, in, lines of work, YouTube, Google, it's in my opinion, a great resource and it's a quick way to find something. And then
Yeah.
ChatGPT is like that shortcut to both of those items. So
Yeah.
it's a great tool, but yeah, in
Yeah.
certain things, like especially in schoolwork, I think it's important that you put in the time and effort into it. I mean, I sound like an old head right now, John, but I just think it's worth
No,
it.
I think it is too, because like I said, like you mentioned, and especially if there's studies showing that if people are going to use ChatGPT to do all your work, how is your brain developing at that age? Because while you're in middle school, high school, that's what the big thing school is about. I feel like it's about developing your brain, having, your brain become stronger. So if you're using ChatGPT to do everything for you and you're not really learning, you're not really testing yourself by memorizing, reading, learning new subjects, how is your brain going to develop? And like you mentioned, eventually, if that's the case, and there's studies that show that, the younger population, their brain isn't developing and they're not as knowledgeable on certain things, like, are they going to go more to AI, for their companies? And I, I think a lot of them are already doing that. I think there's a lot of companies that are using AI to sort of help them run a company and do a lot of things that usually they would have people do because it's quicker, it's more advanced. And I think, yeah, they're still going to have people there, but they're more going to be sort of double checking AI's work, you know? Because, like I say, you could have AI do all the finances for a company, but you still need a human to sort of double check it, make sure there's no errors, and make sure everything's getting caught right? So they're still gonna have people are still gonna have jobs, but it's gonna be more limited, and then that job market's gonna be harder. And even in a time like right now, where the job market is a hard one for a lot of people getting out of college, graduating with their degrees, it might just get even harder with time.
For sure. Yeah, no, and it kind of makes me think about there's a college student. Did you see that he graduated, I guess, this past month, and he brought out his laptop during the graduation and showed all of his research that he did or like work completion
Really?
through ChatGPT and like did it in front of the camera. And it's
Oh,
like, man, can they take your diploma right there if
yeah.
you're, pulling something like that? Because I mean, that's crazy to do, in
It,
my
it
opinion.
it's cr- it's crazy to do, and I've always said, education is important, getting your degree is important, but it's also, that real world experience, helps
Yeah.
as well. So, you need both of them still, in my opinion, to really be successful. But yeah, AI, ChatGPT. If MIT is doing this study, I feel like all these other big universities are going to do their studies as well. And we're going to be getting a lot more data to see how much lazier and I think they're probably even going to dive deeper, like you mentioned, go into the brain. Like how is your brain not developing compared to, 20, 30 years ago before cell phones and electronics? Because yeah, that's the one thing with schools. It still amazes me on how every kid starting in elementary school, I think they all have tablets and laptops now.
Hmm.
Whereas when we were in school, we still had the ancient computers and you maybe used it for like 30 minutes for your computer labs and that's it.
Yeah. Did you ever have any of like classmates that had that like little electronic like computer thing that literally just had like sentences at the top pretty much only, and then they would type their notes on that instead of doing handwriting because maybe, they had handwriting difficulty or something like that. I don't know if you've ever
No,
witnessed that.
I never witnessed it, but I heard about it,
Yeah,
those little accommodations that some people have. Like my handwriting has improved since high school and in elementary school, but my handwriting was bad. And I always got in
right.
trouble for that as a kid.
Yeah, no, I remember vividly like a few students in, when I was going through like grade school or middle school had those. And I always
Hmm.
thought like, that was kind of sick, being
Yeah.
able to like type your stuff out. And I'm like, damn, like look at you all sophisticated
Yeah.
and not having to go old school and write it down. But um that was like literally the tablet
Yeah.
of pretty much our time. And then yeah, we just had like what Windows 95, Macintosh,
Yeah. The fraction game on the computer that you play at school.
Yep.
I forget what it was called. It was like with the frog and you had to do the fractions multiplication. Did you ever play
Yeah.
that game? I forget
I
what it
f-
was called.
I forget what it was called, but I also had a really popular one called like Mario's Fundamentos, I think is what it was called.
Mm.
And it was literally Mario. And then it had like checkers, it had a typing game,
That's
it had
hilarious.
Yahtzee on it. It was lit. It was a great computer class every time that we got to play with that.
That's good.
But yeah, that's what
Yeah.
what we had. But now there's like
Yeah.
ChatGPT, tablets, you name it.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
like I say, it's just the technology nowadays. Because even like I say, when I went to college, I was using a laptop, a lot for school. But and like I say, like you said, it might just be our old heads talking. I still enjoy writing notes by hand. Even
Yeah.
at my current job working, whenever I'm in meetings or something, I still write a lot of things by hand because I feel, and like I said, it might just be my mind, it might just be my craziness of how I do things. But when I write it on by hand, it's sort of like hearing it, writing it, seeing it. It's like getting into my brain a little bit better. So,
Yep.
like I said, it's something I still do as an adult and as an old head, as some of these young people may say, but it helps. Like I say, I feel like it helps me
Yeah.
retain information.
Literally every podcast, dude. I have the notepad right here, for
Yep.
that same exact reason. It's, you know, don't kill an old habit,
Yeah,
it's helps you recognize, learn, remember, you name it.
it does.
It's a great way to learn. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so we'll see how these apps sort of affect youth society in the days because like I said, there's a lot of trending stuff that it might take over jobs. I hope that's not the case. Let's find a way to limit it and, use it for our benefits to continue learning.
absolutely. Completely agree. All right. So John sent me over next my next take here. The major sports leagues need to restructure their seasons to have a playoff series from July to August. Completely agree. We are now, heading directly into the lull of sports, fandom, sports
Yes.
seasons, and we are stuck with, baseball is great. Don't get me wrong, but it is a lull. Like it's
Hmm.
a boring period. We don't have football. We're waiting on football. There's not even training camp going on right now. And NBA Finals just wrapped up. That was kind of our last little hurrah.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of left like, dreaming about, a football season ahead, what's going to
Yes.
happen next NBA season and stuff like that. So, I mean, if there's any possible way that, one of these leagues can kind of extend their season, start a little bit later, maybe give more time in
Hmm.
between games in order to extend that. The NFL is obviously extending weeks. We're now,
Hmm.
they added, that extra game. There's, rumors that they're going to extend it another game or two.
Yeah.
Um, so, that could help it slightly. Obviously not extending into July and August, but basketball would probably be, a good start. And we're probably going to talk a lot more about it coming up here, John, but the NBA in particular might be looking at schedule changes, some
Hmm.
type of change with, injuries that are occurring.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a good excuse to try to extend the NBA season a little bit further, start a little bit later.
Yeah.
Obviously, the start of the season, we're only about 3 months away again.
Yeah.
It's there's hardly an off season, I feel like, for the NBA when you go deep into the playoffs. Obviously, if
There
you're,
is.
on a crappy team, you're gonna have more time. But it's one of those things that, we need. I just us in particular, everybody who loves sports needs something going on a little
Yeah.
bit more than just baseball during this time. Soccer's kind of heating up here and there, right?
Hmm.
There is some tournaments out there, but that's a particular group. It's
Yeah.
it's not quite as popular in America, but certainly popular in other countries, but here, hockey just wrapped up as well.
Hmm.
If we could, I don't know how hockey's obviously a winter sport.
Yeah.
We all feel like, it's kind of crazy to see them go into summer as much as they do, but yeah, we need something, even the creation of something to kind of carry us on, like a minor league of football that's a little bit better than the XFL would be
Hmm.
great. I don't know, just
Yeah.
something, John. Do you have any ideas of what sport could drag on a little bit more or maybe extend a season?
Um, I think it's the NBA. That's the
Mhm.
one league I think should start later to have their playoffs around July, August because it's the one sport that it's not really a winter or it's not really stuck to a certain time, and also weather conditions for like those outdoor sports like baseball. I think they're playing right now in the summer, but I think it's perfect for them to play their playoffs, towards the winter, October, because it's getting cooler. Hockey, you think of just ice. So staying in the winter, the current season they have is great. Basketball, you play that indoors. You don't play that outside. So it's like push it back a bit, have the playoffs just because there were times this year where basketball and Stanley Cup playoffs they were on the same day, and it's like we want to watch both, and we only get the option and chance to watch one of them. So we really need to find a way for these sports leagues to sort of tirade themselves to not be have the playoffs or the finals around the same time because NFL or not NFL, NHL and basketball playoffs were all the last 2 months together, which great sports, kept us busy. But now, like you mentioned, we're going into just baseball season. We could watch baseball for just so much, and we're only gonna really watch our teams, pretty much. Watch highlights of people hitting dingers, things like that. Watch those big name players go onto the mound, Paul Skeens, Screwball. We want to watch them pitch, because they're just electric. But after that, there's not much entertainment until the World Series or, playoffs. And then you mentioned soccer. Soccer in the US has gotten popular, but I think it's also taken a little bit of a hit. Um, if international soccer was still on, that would be great because I think that would be busy, but they also end about, February, March, where the championships are decided. And then right now it's international duty, which Gold Cup
Mhm.
is keeping us entertained. Euro Nation kept us entertained for a bit, but like I said, that all happened during the NBA playoffs. So what could we have during this window? And I have seen a lot of people say golf, and golf does get interesting. But like I say, I
Mhm.
think that's also a sport that you really have to play and like to really watch it because I don't play it much. I've watched very little of it. Maybe I should get into golf a little bit more. I know our buddy Chris is always trying to get me into it.
Mhm.
But it's there isn't much more. And like I say, for us gentlemen, people that love sports, It's a little bit of a sad few months, depressing. But I know a lot of our wives are probably happy because now we just hang out with them and don't say we need to watch this at this time.
Pretty much, yeah. Turn the focus, to other things versus yeah, like just sports.
Hmm.
I'm sure that we'll come up with something here on the podcast to kind of get us more intrigued into baseball season. Maybe
Yeah.
we could do some type of home run RBI league, and then we could
Yeah.
combine this, have a mini draft here, John. That's an idea. Something to kind of carry us through a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, and then obviously once training camp starts for football, I feel like that's a great build up preseason. The Hall of Fame
Hmm.
Canton, Ohio game. That's a ton of fun. Then we kind of leeway into college football. It's like a lot of like putting your mind in a good spot by just thinking about football
Yeah.
is what kind of gets you through these months. Another way is just vacationing, talking
Hmm.
about random things, watching,
Yeah.
picking up good TV shows, binge watching things.
Yeah.
Um, Now would be a great time for Stranger Things to drop. I don't think I think we're looking towards fall, right? Or
Yeah.
winter at this point.
I think October, November it
Waited
starts
too
dropping.
long. Waited too long.
But this is where you can binge it and catch up if you haven't been caught up with these new shows,
Valid.
final season's coming up. It's like you
Good
got the
point.
entire month or 2 months
That's
before
right.
before football.
Absolutely. And try to find other hobbies, I suppose.
Hmm.
Is a great way to kind of go about it too. But yeah, it's a lull for sports fans. It's different. And then this is the point of like, I've always admired like podcasts that I've watched in the past,
Hmm.
sports shows. This is the time of year that I'm like, let me see what you really got because
Yeah.
there's not a ton to talk about.
No.
And just the way that topics of what they kind of bring on, some
Hmm.
of them turn towards, pop culture, movie interviews, stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's what we're gonna be doing a lot more, hence, the movie game that we have ongoing at
Hmm.
the moment. Um, that's part of it. But even talking about like the history of sports right now, we're
Yeah.
going to get a lot of like reruns of certain
Hmm.
events. So those are always fun to look back on. I used to be a big one rerun I always loved to watch, John,
Hmm.
was just the old Pro Bowls
No,
and
that's a good
watching
one.
like the long throw competitions,
Yeah.
just all those skill competitions, the lifting, you name it. Those would be so much fun to watch in the summer for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the old Pro Bowl, the Hawaii one, when they did
Hmm.
everything out there, Hawaii, and when they were really into it, hitting each other, really playing
Oh
football.
yeah.
Those are the good ones to watch. For me, one of the things I like to watch, still sports related, is a lot of the 30 for 30s. I just rewatch a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of them. Just go back into them, some new ones that come out. But yeah, like you mentioned, this is the time to sort of see where everybody goes when sports is gone for these sports podcasts, entertainment podcasts, because you're a lot of people's bread and butter is sports. It's one that's happening every day. There's things going on, but when sports isn't happening, how do you keep it up? What do you do? What do you talk about? And yeah, for us, I think it'll one of them will be movie games, movies, TV shows. We like that. Video games,
Hmm.
it's usually, these next few months you start getting a lot of announcements of new games. So something we'll probably touch on and then just getting ready for football, fantasy football. That's coming up too. So there's still a lot to happen, but yeah, I always think like what can sports do to sort of keep this month also entertainment, and entertaining because like I say, it doesn't I'm not trying to say like I want it every single day, but every other day, every 3 days, having a great playoff game is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. How can we get Caitlin Clark to play for all WNBA teams to see her just daily?
Yeah.
That's another way to get us through the summer now.
Yeah.
Because obviously, that's a very entertaining kind of sport right now
Yeah.
just watching her play. WNBA is kind of on the up and up.
Hmm.
There was some things that happened over this past week with Kelsey Plum maybe kind of
Yeah.
getting into it with some fans, and that was interesting. But overall, I think what they do on the court can be pretty enjoyable. So,
Hmm.
that I'm glad to see that's on the up. But another thing, speaking of women's sports, Sean,
Hmm.
and maybe something that might get really popular in the future to help out these 2 months if the other leagues can't extend it somehow
Yeah.
is the professional softball league for ladies.
Oh
That
yeah.
is been seeing a ton about that lately, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool. And I guess this year's, honestly, I saw more clips for this year's softball tournament than I did the men's
Yeah.
baseball tournament for some reason.
Yes.
That seemed to be a lot more
Yeah.
popular until like the championship game for
Yeah.
baseball. But shout out LSU, congratulations. But
Yeah.
um,
Congrats.
yeah, softball might be in the up and up, which
Hmm.
is great for ladies sports.
Yeah.
You know, me being a girl dad, I love to see it, and hopefully it's there's a lot more to come out of that too, because again, that's just more sports.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
It's more sports. I think it's really interesting because I feel like you mentioned, softball always gets a little bit more attention than baseball in college during this
Right.
time. The softball World Series. I don't know if they call it the World Series, but it gets that attention. And I know you shared, one of the videos. I think it was like 2, 3 weeks ago, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it. And
Hmm.
it's really cool that they're creating this because it's something I think a lot of people were disappointed and sad that it was taken away from the Olympics because I don't think softball has been in the Olympics for the last few years.
Right.
And maybe this is a way to make it mainstream and bring it, back to the Olympics because it's very it's very good, I've always enjoyed it.
Mhm.
It's baseball. And I think it's also, like I said, when we get to our age, older, where we're not youngsters anymore, a lot of people play softball in leagues,
Yeah.
a lot of co-ed men softball leagues. It's not baseball because we can't hit the ball or even pitch that fast anymore. So
Mhm.
it's fun to see. And yeah, hopefully that sort of builds up, other sports, I think on the up and up. Pickleball, that's another one that I feel like might
Yep.
end up having a big league and getting its own, channel soon. But we'll see.
Definitely. Yeah. Pickleball faces a lot of hate though. And, quite frankly, I don't get it. I think people say like that's where the inathletic people go to, play sports or continue playing. But I'll watch some pickleball, like professional pickleball tournaments.
Mhm.
I mean, some of the shots they're doing,
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive. Like they're hitting it beyond like the court, like
Hmm.
over the fence.
Yeah.
At times, I mean,
Yeah.
it can get pretty crazy. I mean, if you're playing doubles, obviously there's a little bit more coverage there,
Hmm.
but it looks fun. And it like you said, it's on the up and up for sure. I
Hmm.
have a childhood friend that I think he might be ranked nationally.
Oh,
Would
wow.
be a great guest to have on here to talk pickleball.
Yeah.
But he posts about it all the time. It's fun to watch.
Hmm.
And it's he was a good tennis player growing up too. So, that's
Yeah.
something where, if tennis, only goes so far, pickleball is right there
Hmm.
to kind of pick up too.
Yeah.
So,
Imagine seeing Rafael Nadal,
oh yeah.
all those players going
Fed,
into pickleball,
Djokovic.
after they retire from tennis, just because it might be a little easier on the legs, still fun entertainment. That would make up the league,
Yep.
if they create that. And I think it's something they should do, create that after you retire. How do I continue staying relevant in this game? Different type of racket, but still have fun and, make money because you'll make money off of that.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great way
Uh,
to make money. Tournament money.
yeah, the Wimbledon pickleball tournament. That'd be awesome.
But yeah, there you go. That's it right there. And
Uh,
then the way that they can formulate tournaments for that, I mean, they usually bunch together like 20 courts in a small
hmm.
area.
Yeah,
Just hop, game to game. I think
yeah.
it's great.
Mm.
Yeah.
It'll be good. And you bring up something in sort of just a follow-up question with Kelsey Plum.
Hmm.
I don't know if people have seen it. She sort of questions two fans, and I'll say male fans, of wanting, an autograph from her when she's walking. I don't know if she's walking into the hotel, to the bus, but
Yep.
sort of saying it's a little weird, and for me it wasn't a great look because like I said, that's what it is. And like the big thing we saw Fanatic Fest. I don't know if you saw clips of Fanatic Fest
A
this
ton.
weekend
Yeah.
at New
Hmm.
York, and that's what this is about. When you're a sports athlete, everybody wants your autograph because A, either they're fans, B, this is a hobby, it's about collecting the autographs. C, some people are resellers. That autograph probably is gonna make that guy, 100 plus bucks, depending on what type of cards you signed. But to sort of question fans for wanting signatures that way, calling it a little weird or not, I think we talked about it in the messages we had. Little, not that great of a look and a bad look for at least WNBA right now.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of poses the question of, do you want growth for
Hmm.
your league?
Yeah.
Because this is the way to do it. Whether Joe Schmo's going to go resell your card,
Hmm.
or he's going to go get it graded, or she's going to
Yeah.
go get it graded, or it's going to become a personal collection of
Hmm.
Kelsey Plum trading cards. They shouldn't be weirded out by stuff like that
Yeah.
because they're in the public eye. They have collectibles, which are
Hmm.
trading cards that are
Yeah.
out there. Some of the players I'm sure will have bobblehead nights. It's
Hmm.
like, is that odd for them too?
Yeah.
It's very common in men's sports,
Hmm.
and I think it's a great thing to see people
Hmm.
catching on for this for women's sports. Kelsey Plum's
Yeah.
obviously a very well-known player,
Hmm.
and for good reason. She's a great player, but
Yeah.
you know, I just didn't see any problems with it because this happens
Yeah.
consistently with men's. Like,
Yeah.
they'll wait at buses, they know what hotel they stay at,
Hmm.
and that goes for all visiting teams. Like, I follow a guy who, I think his name is Joy of Everything, and he's based in LA, and he'll wait outside of, I believe, Staples Center when
Hmm.
the Lakers leave, and he'll watch each player go and try to
Yeah.
ask a question if their window's down, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all part of the game. It's
Yeah.
entertainment, is a huge part of it, not just, sports. So, didn't love that image. I hope, maybe she kind of elaborates a little bit more on why
Hmm.
she was feeling that way.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to put that to the side either. But at the same time, if it was strictly them just waiting out there,
Hmm.
for autographs, I'd be, cool to see versus
Yeah.
like anything else. But anyways, I hope I hope women's sports continues to
Hmm.
grow. That's going to be a big part of it. And yeah, it's overall it's good for growth.
Yeah. I think it's good for growth. I think it's something you sign up with when you go into a professional hobby like sports or a professional career, sports, anything sports related. You're going to be recognized everywhere and you're going to be asked for these autographs. And like you mentioned, it was a normal type of situation where you ask for an autograph. People are waiting outside your hotels, waiting outside their arenas, wanting that autograph. And when that happens, if you get the chance, you go for it. The one funny thing for me, and like I said, not trying to put it down, but there was only two people out there. Like you're complaining about having just two
Right.
people wanting an autograph. Now, if it was hundreds, I'd be like, yeah, I can't, I can't do the shay of signing 200 plus autographs before the game,
Right.
type thing. So it's just sort of that mindset. I think hopefully it changes. Hopefully she gives an explanation of why she sort of reacted that way and because it's about building the sport, but it's just, for me, you go into professional sports for the fame and you have to be able to deal with what comes with it. And that's those autographs, people bothering you. If she was at dinner, a place like that and someone would come up with a camera, then I'd understand a little bit of the frustration, but this is a normal everyday situation.
For sure. Yeah. And it wasn't like he's going into the hotel, to
Yeah.
track them down.
Yeah.
It's
Knocking
literally
on
on
the
a public
door.
street. He knows players are coming out. I
Yeah.
think that they were, yeah, like you said, heading to a hotel, heading to the bus. Very
Mhm.
common. Very,
Yeah.
very common. They're not outside your front doorstep.
Yeah.
No, that's weird. But,
Yeah.
if it's in the public, seen.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's growth. It's important. It's good.
yeah,
But anyways, well, I wonder if that guy will go back for more autographs in the future and say,
yeah,
"Hey, remember me?"
yeah, yeah. He probably will. Like I say, because
Yeah,
I think a lot of them use this as a career, as a hobby, and
sure.
they make money off of it. So they keep some, they sell some. So we'll see. But yeah, it's just I know we saw that video, and then thinking of Fanatic Fest because like I said, everybody there was trying to pick up all the cards that were signed. That was a big topic.
Oh yeah,
All the signatures. On card autographs. I think I saw the Jaden Daniels Black Prism going for 500,000.
500,000. That's right.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Big money. It's big
Big
money.
money. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'll send you this next take. I know you, Tim, you
Yeah,
only said one,
that
but
was the
we,
only
we could
one I
sort
had.
of
Sorry.
we could discuss this one.
There we go. All right. Alex Caruso just confirmed with winning another championship that COVID bubble was a Mickey Mouse chip and doesn't mean the same. Yeah, that was a kind of funny line that he had there in his post-game, post-finals press conference,
Hmm.
and kind of was talking about the bubble championship that he had with LeBron and the Lakers,
Yeah.
and how that was obviously a completely different setting and is known as, Mickey Mouse Championship. So,
Yeah.
he's kind of saying like, now I got the real one, and
Yeah.
he can live up to it, and blah blah blah. Now people can't really kind of run him for that, and you know, he,
Hmm.
he did it in a different way. But
Yeah.
what's funny about it is I have seen a ton of video edits talking about how this win for Oklahoma City was a Mickey Mouse championship. And
No, I've seen
there's the
that too.
Mickey Mouse Playhouse, theme song going on in the background. And it cracks me up because I quite frankly wasn't really expecting that.
Hmm.
I, thought it was a pretty average,
Hmm.
kind of run in with, teams that OKC faced this, playoff
Yeah.
run. Obviously, they ran into injuries on other teams and stuff like that, but that's really not their
Yeah.
fault. But they still played stiff competition, went up
Hmm.
against Jokic, you name it. So, um, I think that's a little bit more far-fetched than Alex
Yeah.
Caruso kind of acknowledging, the Mickey Mouse ring. Obviously, a ring's a ring and it's
Hmm.
important, but the way that most people kind of see that Lakers championship is, especially when it comes towards LeBron,
Yeah.
it's a Mickey Mouse one. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny. And, props to Caruso. He had a great game.
Hmm.
Kind of proved himself, getting that real rings. So
Yeah.
what do you think about it, John?
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious because I think we've always talked about it. I think everybody talks about it with and like I said, I'll sort of bring up baseball with the Dodgers because we won our first World Series in a long time during that COVID year. Everybody said it was
Yep.
like it's that Mickey Mouse World Series, but hey, we won ours again, regular season, full games. So
Yep.
nobody can really talk now. But like I say, yeah, it's about the rings, but I just thought it was hilarious because I saw this one post that LeBron's gonna send a cease and desist to Alex Caruso for saying that about his championship. So we'll sort of see what happens
Oh,
because
man.
I'm thinking LeBron might not be too happy about it. But yeah, I also saw that everybody said this was a Mickey Mouse championship win for the Thunder, and I don't see it that way. Yes, they got an easier path with all the injuries, the way the playoffs went. But I'm curious, like, and I saw this also in another post. It's like, what would they have said if the Pacers won? Because you gotta look at the Pacer side too. They went through all these teams that had injuries. Cleveland was injured. The Bucks were injured. The Knicks just aren't that great. They would have, I think, like I said, and I'm gonna hold to it. If they would have faced the Celtics, a healthy Celtics team, I don't think they would have won. So them winning it against a Thunder team that a lot of people aren't happy with, they aren't happy with the way they play, the team in general. They would have said the same. It would have been, for me, it would have been more of a Mickey Mouse trophy than OKC. So, um, For me overall, great playoff series. I liked it. We went to game seven for our finals. Always great to see a game seven. Unfortunate, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but just unfortunate ending for Indiana, what happened. Um, but yeah, the Caruso stuff, hilarious. I just saw that and I was like, man, I can't believe you really said that.
Right. Yeah. He acknowledges it. Props to him. And yeah,
Mhm.
obviously that's probably going to hurt LeBron's feelings, but we'll get more into it, but
Yeah.
rings might not be a thing to him anyway, so what does that
Yeah.
matter? And yeah, overall, I think that might be a good leeway drawn
Hmm.
into our NBA talks and kind of covering the finals. And
Yeah.
you know, I agree with you. I kind of starting right here with the NBA
Hmm.
Finals altogether. The Pacers had the tougher route in comparison to what Oklahoma City went through. The Pacers were far more entertaining the way that they did it too.
Hmm.
There's game winners
Yeah.
every single series that they had with Halliburton.
Yeah.
And, he was absolutely incredible. And it was a shame to see him go down with the Achilles injury.
Hmm.
And obviously, that's brutal to see. We have to watch it a zillion times in a row.
Yeah.
And we're all, Achilles tear experts at this point because we've
Yeah.
seen it so often in the coming years. And, um, that's going to be another topic of
Hmm.
discussion here. But, as far as the game went, it was just kind of it was a big dagger when that
Hmm.
happened. And that was unfortunate. And you have guys like, McConnell who
Hmm.
went all out. He
Yeah.
left it all on the floor, on his way back to the locker room crying, showing a
Hmm.
lot of emotion. He embraced with his mom, and his mom had to wave away the camera. And
Yeah.
that was a tough sight. Felt for him. Hell of a season, hell of a playoff run he
Hmm.
had. And that just goes to show, how much heart there is with that team altogether.
Hmm.
And it's a bummer because that Halliburton injury is gonna put him out through all of next season, is what
Yeah.
the rumors have as of today. So, it was a bummer to see. Team fought hard, but it was just not enough going up
Hmm.
against Oklahoma, especially when Oklahoma's at home. They proved it.
Yeah.
Entertaining start to the game, kind of pulled away towards the end. But what
Hmm.
did you think, John?
Yeah, entertaining. It was good at halftime. I think Indiana was up one, so I sort of told you, I'm like, this could go a bad way because OKC has lost a lot of games at the end, and even when they were up, like I think they were up 21.
Hmm.
Indiana came back to be, within striking distance of like I think 10 or 11. But
Hmm.
OKC ended up closing it out, which they should have, because if they wouldn't have, they this would have been a big highlight of how OKC lost the championship.
Right.
Because like you mentioned, Indiana, Halliburton, I've said it here, I'm not the biggest fan of his game overall, but I feel bad for the kid because he was putting his heart out, for this game. I think for Indiana, he was still the highest three-point shooter for the game yesterday with only playing what 7, 8 minutes. He already
Yeah.
had three threes in those 7, 8 minutes, and nobody else on the team scored more threes than him when he only played a bit of a quarter. So that shows how much of a difference maker he could have made. And for me, so props to OKC because, like I say, it's not easy. I think winning a championship.
Mhm.
Not many teams make it, so it was entertaining. I liked it. I wish Hallie wouldn't have gotten hurt because I think it would have been a lot more of a competitive game going towards the buzzer, instead of the way it ended. McConnell, that guy, I don't know why he didn't play the entire game. He should have, Rick Carlisle should have just kept him in because he was that spark that they had. I think it was in the third. He scored the last 10, 15 points.
Mhm.
If he wouldn't have done that, they would have been down 30 to 40, going into the fourth. So he kept them in it. The other thing I thought of is like Pascal Siakam. Like why are you sitting on the bench? You're the main go-to guy. He was dominating the paint because OKC was playing small ball. Like it's game seven. You gotta give it your all. Play 40, all 48 minutes if you have to, to try to win it. So, but like I said, that's just my mindset. But overall, great series, great playoffs. I liked it. we've seen a different champion the last 9 years, I think. So we haven't had
Yeah.
many dynasties, which might be a good thing for basketball.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely a lot of, you know, changing of, the torch for sure.
Hmm.
And there's a crazy stat that I came across that I guess in the first 12 seasons,
Hmm.
since Silver's been commissioner, he has crowned, what is it, eight different champions, I believe it
I
is.
think it's
Eight
nine
to 10,
now. I think it's
nine now,
nine with OKC.
which is crazy. And then evidently, when it came to David Stern during his tenure as commissioner, I think he only crowned 10 different champions.
Hmm.
So, obviously you had your main like Lakers, Celtics during those
Yeah.
runs, Heat, you name it.
Yeah.
That was kind of the more prominent figures and teams
Hmm.
during that time. You know, this is probably a good thing for the NBA to show, a little bit less of a
Yeah.
dynasty. Um, kind of mixing in with different teams. But that was kind of a crazy stat.
Yeah.
Goes to show, how much things change, whether people want to team up elsewhere or, kind of money chase and go elsewhere, willing to take that risk. It's an ever-changing NBA landscape.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing was kind of a random topic here, John, with
Yeah.
the NBA Finals. Did you see how much leftover booze were in the OKC locker room?
I saw that.
The young
I
team. It's a
yeah,
young
I
team.
think a very young team because
Yep.
they were saying this they weren't celebrating the way normal championship teams win,
No, yeah.
and like I say, it could be a generational thing. We saw the one video of Jalen Williams trying the beer,
Oh
making
yeah.
this face and asking for the tequila. It's like, man, that they're just a young team. It's one of the youngest teams to win a championship. Weren't they asking Alex Caruso how to do everything because they didn't even know how to open champagne bottles?
How to pop
It's
it. And,
how to pop
yeah.
it. It's like, man, this is hilarious. I'm like,
Yep.
it was one of the funny things I think from the whole thing.
Definitely, definitely. And I thought it was hilarious how Jalen Williams was taking that swig of, the Michelob and,
Yeah.
the grimacing face at the end of it. And
Yeah.
Alex Caruso was playing like his dad saying like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, a little at a time, a little at a time. Because I'm sure that, if he's ever drinking, it's
Yeah.
certainly probably been a long time because, these guys are, battling through the playoffs and all
Hmm.
of regular season. So yeah, it was different. I felt like the lights were on the whole time too.
Hmm.
It's just, kind of a different shake out of things and probably the
Yeah.
sign of things to come because this generation, people drink a little bit less,
Hmm.
in the younger generations. So, it's great. I'm sure that they had a great time regardless. It was
Yeah.
funny. Hey, props to SGA though being extra fatherly and helping Hartenstein with his child
Yeah.
sleeping and like, oh, you got to support the neck. I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty funny. Pretty, valid take. As a parent looking on with that, it's like,
Yeah.
man, the kid's neck is always so delicate and freaks
Yeah.
me out all the time. And obviously, Hartenstein had it under control, but it was just kind
Yeah.
of funny to see him do that. So, yeah, props to OKC.
Yeah.
It's great to see a new franchise, kind
Yeah.
of build their way through everything, finally accomplish that dream. I
Yeah.
miss the Supersonics, but
Hmm.
OKC is definitely establishing something there great, and SGA's do a crap ton of money. I think
Hmm.
80 million a year is what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
props to him on MVPs all around.
Hmm.
So hell of a season, but still a little bit of a free throw merchant. I won't
Yeah.
I won't deny that.
No, for
Uh,
sure.
but great player.
Yeah, no, great player. Well deserved. That Hardenstein thing, I thought it was hilarious. That kiddo, kudos to that kiddo being able to stay asleep with all the noise going around,
Right. Yeah.
confetti. That kid was knocked out. He must have had some good milk before, the end of the
Yeah.
game to stay asleep that way.
Right.
Um, but yeah, young team. I'm curious to see where this franchise goes because they still have a lot of draft picks, a lot of potential, as a young team. We talked about it last week. Everybody's still under contract for next year, so next year could be another. another route for them, to the
Hmm.
finals, and especially knowing Pacers lost Hallie for the year, Boston without Jason Tatum, it could be another championship. It could be the first back-to-back in quite a while. Um, but
Right.
we'll see, and sort of we could sort of go on to another topic with rings, and OKC winning the rings, well deserved. Ring culture, big topic of discussion this past
Hmm.
week, and it was LeBron talking on. Is it the Steve? They call it the Steve Nash show, but I feel like it's still the LeBron show because LeBron's like the only guest really on it.
Yeah, he's the only guy
Yeah,
I've seen on that show.
yeah, other than Luca, but LeBron's still on
Other
it
than
with
Luca.
Steve Nash.
Yep.
But he was sort of he was sharing how as a society we're all about the rings, it's this ring culture. We judge someone by the rings, and when I heard that, I think we each sent each other videos, multiple videos about it because in this what I'll say is this is our opinion. And for me, LeBron is being a hypocrite
Hmm.
because and we talked about it. LeBron left Cleveland to chase rings. He went to Miami and he said he's not going to win not one, not two, not three, but what was it? 4 or 5 championship rings. That
And
was
he
his
went way
goal.
too, yeah. Yeah, he went way too far with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, that's what he commented exactly word by word, that he went to Miami and they were there to win rings, And then there was another video from his clip, I don't know if you saw from the shop from a while ago, where the championship against Golden State, his
Yeah.
biggest accomplishment, it's what sort of made him the GOAT. So I
Right.
don't know if those were the exact words, but uh,
Self-claimed.
yeah, self-claimed greatest win, greatest player because of what they did, coming back 3-1,
Hmm.
which great accomplishment, not gonna take that away. But you still said winning that ring is what made you the GOAT. So
Yeah.
that's ring culture right there. So you're already judging yourself on that ring culture when you're saying it shouldn't be judged. And I just think he's a big old hypocrite because he cares about it, and he says it's about stats. And I found these stats and let me pull them up because I think everybody's comparing him to Michael. Michael won 6 rings, LeBron has only won 3. Um, But there was, here it is. So these are numbers through 15 seasons. So I'm only because, like I said, the one thing I look at, LeBron's played a lot longer, and the reason for me, played a lot longer because of how technology and how keeping your body healthy is a lot bigger, more important now than it probably was back in Jordan's era. But
Hmm.
through 15 seasons, record wise, LeBron has Jordan 716 wins and 356 losses, where Jordan 706 and 366. So still pretty similar. Not much, a difference of 10 games. Career minutes, Jordan was at 41,011, LeBron 41,688. Somewhat similar, like I say,
Hmm.
LeBron, we see how LeBron keeps his body up and running. But this is where it sort of gets interesting. Career points. In 15 seasons, LeBron was or MJ was fourth with 32,292. LeBron, through 15 seasons, he was seventh, 29,105. So he's already had less points throughout the same career Jordan has. Points
Hmm.
per game, Jordan was at 30.1, LeBron 27.2. Rebounds, assists, blocks, rebounds and assists, LeBron 1, 7.3 rebounds, Jordan 6.2, assists, 7.1 assists for LeBron, Jordan 5.3. Blocks, they were even, point 0.8 for both. But then steals per game, Jordan 2.3, LeBron 1.6. And this was the other interesting one for me. 50-point games. MJ had 31 50-point games throughout those 15 years. LeBron only 11. The one thing LeBron did have a lot more was triple doubles. Jordan had 28, LeBron had 56. So they're the stats are pretty much similar. I still think Jordan has a one up on him, and in my head, I'm like, if you're gonna go off of that, you can't look at your entire career because you're already playing 5 to maybe even 10 years more than Jordan. Of course, you're gonna have more points than him. But if you look at it in that 15-year mark, you're down again. So,
Right. No, that super valid, exactly right. And a big thing is because rings are the biggest argument
hmm
between who's GOAT and who's not. Jordan's undefeated in finals, has more finals victories,
hmm
and LeBron, it's a battle he'll never win. You
hmm
know, it's honestly too late. I think he's what 4-6 when it comes to finals. It's
Yeah.
incredible how many finals he's made it, but he's gone elsewhere to chase those rings,
hmm
and it's great that that Warriors ring was great, but just I think he's literally searching for the one thing that people argue the most and tries to deflect it to focus on his other achievements to
hmm
kind of deem him the GOAT. It's still a GOAT chase, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's something that's just like why else? Paul Pierce said it great. Why else are you playing?
hmm
You want to go out there and win rings.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says.
hmm
Nobody really says I'm out there to get a paycheck. You
Yeah.
know, some people have obviously, but
Yeah.
nobody really says that. Everybody's always like, I want that trophy, I want that
hmm
ring, I want that, championship.
Yeah.
It's literally the talk. So for him to go out there and say that and talk about team sports
Yeah.
and all this and that, it's like, yeah, buddy, like that's number one argument there, bud.
Yeah.
So and then I'm probably gonna get a lot of heat for this question, John. But is LeBron the biggest stat compiler of all time?
Yeah. He is.
All these years,
hmm
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he is. And like I say, for me, he's gonna play another 2 years, and it's just to put those stats up to where the point where in 10, 15 years, his name's still at number one because nobody is gonna be able to play as long as he can to even get close to those numbers.
Right. Exactly right. I think
hmm
it's kind of a valid way to look at it. I hate
hmm
to say it, but he is a compiler.
Yeah.
Frank Gore of the NBA? No, it's too
Maybe.
late. Talk about a guy that played forever.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's definitely a valid question, one that
hmm
we'll post. Um,
hmm
and your agreement, John, I think it's a pretty valid thought. So
Yeah.
it, in quite frankly, John, he can be labeled that if rings aren't important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's that. I mean, he kind of walked himself into this.
He
It's
did. It's crazy because, like I say, he brought up the sort of argument like, is Charles Barkley not a GOAT? Allen Iverson is like, no, they're all great players, and I'm not saying LeBron's not a great player. He's gonna go down into history as one of the best in basketball, but the one GOAT, in my opinion, it's still Michael Jordan because of what he did in those 15 years, how many never losing a finals, and then
yep,
even Kobe Bryant. Because like I said, Kobe Bryant did it, sort of on his own, not having to go to other places, to win those championships. Because another stat I saw, um, number one overall picks as teammates, and this is all just compared to Jordan. Jordan only had one overall number one overall pick as a teammate, and that was Kwame Brown in 2001 to 2003. That's when he was on the
Jesus,
Wizards.
yeah,
So
know
during his
how that
Bulls
went.
era, during his Bulls era, nothing. LeBron played with Joe Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, Greg Oden, Kyrie Irving, Andrew Bogut, Derrick Rose. So you play with multiple number one picks to try to help
Mhm.
him win a
Yep.
championship. So that already shows so much. So his argument towards this ring culture, it's gonna be here forever because that is what we play for. That's what everybody plays for. It's for championships. You could talk to anybody in any sport. You could look at hockey right now. McDavid. Everybody's always putting McDavid down. He is one of the best hockey players, but he's never gonna have that title until he wins a Stanley Cup. And he's lost two in a row. And it's
Right.
hurting his legacy a bit. So this LeBron's stat wise, one of the greatest per numbers, but championship wise, still behind Jordan, behind Kobe.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And to an extent, me being a Warriors fan, I'd argue behind Steph as well.
Yeah.
That's just me, probably a pretty wild take, but I'm sure I'd get a decent population of
Mhm.
people agreeing with that take
Yeah.
because he wins. But that's another thing too. And then kind of this all leads to another thing that we brought up a couple weeks ago, John, of legacies altogether.
Hmm.
And you have players like whether it's Kobe, MJ, just to name a couple, they were less outspoken about a lot of different topics,
Hmm.
and just kind of remained under the radar unless it was for like other avenues of
Yeah.
life. LeBron is just always giving takes
Hmm.
on everything. And quite frankly, I feel like that kind of hurts his legacy.
Yeah.
He comes out talking about rings. That's what makes his name so controversial is
Hmm.
is just his constant takes on
Hmm.
things. Complaints about fouls.
Yeah.
I just feel like social media is huge right now. Maybe Jordan, his legacy would be a little bit different if he
Yeah.
played now. Who's to know? But just the way things have played out, I just don't see how this really helps.
Yeah.
Steph is another one.
Hmm.
He's not really being that outspoken about rings.
Hmm.
He's a guy who wants to win. He's a guy that puts in a lot of effort, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he's not going on podcasts talking about rings. I'm not saying it's a
Yeah.
bad thing about what LeBron is doing, but he's going to get a lot of heat for things that
Hmm.
he brings up.
Yeah, and I think for him is he wants to be liked. He wants to be in the spotlight because he does talk about a lot of stuff. At times it's valid for him to talk about it, when there are big events happening. But then there are times too, it's like where you just don't really have to talk about it. You don't have to defend yourself. You're already the greatest of all time. You're gonna go down in the history books as a Hall of Famer. Why are you trying to defend this ring culture when you're gonna live with it no matter what? Why make it worse? Because like I said, this conversation he just had made it worse. We were already talking about it years ago. Now he made it worse. So just just don't do it yet. Finish your season. And then once you go on to your next avenues after you retire, bring it up again, because it might not be hitting as hard as it does right now while he's so an active player.
For sure. Yeah, no, totally agree. And one last little point I have
Mhm.
on LeBron is I saw a Bryce James interview of just quick takes that he had, and they asked him what his favorite basketball team was, the Lakers. Who's the GOAT, in basketball? Obviously, he said his dad, LeBron.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about, the question I had for you and your take, John, of, how much longer LeBron's going to play. They're going to draft Bryce. And
Oh
then
yeah.
he's going to play with both kids. And it'll
Yeah.
be the first time ever. And he'll
Uh-huh.
make sure he's around long enough to do that. I
Yeah.
can see it happening.
Yeah. Like I say, I think he Brycey goes to college this year. I think he's graduating.
He does. Yep.
Yeah.
Just won, I think, state title with
Yeah.
Harvard
With
Westlake, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken, right? Or no, it
No,
was
Sierra Canyon, right?
Sierra Canyon. My
Sierra
bad. Yep.
Canyon. Yeah. So yeah, with Sierra Canyon. So he's gonna go into college. He's gonna do the same thing, play 1 year, go into the draft. Like I mentioned, I think Brycey has a bit of a better career trajectory than Bronny. So it might be a decent pick for a second rounder, but he's gonna get drafted by either the Lakers if LeBron's still there, which I think he will be.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, he's gonna make history playing with two of his sons, which not many people can. And like I say, what's that gonna do for his legacy other than just sort of put that accolade next to his name that I played with two of my sons, in the NBA and just continue stat padding because that's what he's doing. We talk about it with Angel Reese, rebounding. He's just getting more rebounds, more assists to sort of put himself at a point where he could sort of say like nobody's ever gonna be able to catch me because I have the records and he has the records because like I said, he's played for so long. If Kobe could
Yep.
have played, rest in peace of Kobe. If he could have played another 5 years, if he felt like his body could do it or he had the ability to, he would have. And Kobe would probably still be up there. Kobe might have more championships too. So it's something to sort of look at. I feel like a lot of the LeBron fans are gonna hate us for this take, but I think we both feel the same. He a little bit of a hypocrite going on talking about ring chasing when that's exactly what his goal was from day one of entering the NBA.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll catch some heat. Well worth it. He has
Yeah,
takes, we have takes.
yeah.
World goes around, but yeah, speaking of longevity, kind of a big topic that I
hmm
wanted to quickly get into here, John, was, just injuries
hmm
across the NBA and, kind of starting with, Halliburton, obviously torn Achilles. There's
Yeah,
what was it, three torn Achilles. They all wear number zero.
yeah.
Conspiracy theory out there.
It is.
Tatum, Lillard, and Halliburton all wearing number
Hell,
zero get Achilles tears, and you know, finally Kendrick Perkins. He has a take that I agreed with, and his take was about Halliburton sitting, resting when that calf strain occurred,
mm-hmm.
because same exact thing happened with KD
Yep.
previously. Overuse of the calf, soft tissue injury,
hmm
it your likelihood of an Achilles tear is so much greater when that
Yeah.
happens. And obviously it's game 7. Game 6 was a win,
hmm
must win. Game 7, obviously, same thing. You're not going to miss it. And it's hard to sit out and rely on the rest of your team to try to get you
hmm
there. And you've kind of made it this far and been so clutch. I can see why Hallie wanted to play so badly. But, you know, now the whole next season is in jeopardy because of this.
hmm
So, the big topic here, John, is how can the NBA kind of restructure either the schedule, the length of the game, or length of the season? Do they extend it, still keep the same amount of games, but have more rest days in between?
hmm
We've been big talkers on this show of, load management and how much that
hmm
hurts the NBA. With just bigger gaps between games help that.
Yeah.
Um, those are all things circulating. But I'm curious, Sean, is there any method that you feel like could cut down on these Achilles tear injuries, or just crazy bad injuries?
Um, I'm gonna say no, honestly. I,
Hmm.
I I think no matter how much rest you get, it's not gonna make a difference if you're playing through a minor injury because that's what occurred, that calf strain.
Hmm.
If, you know, during the finals, I think they had longer rest periods, so it gave him more time. But it's the one thing I think players and people just sort of have to look at it. It's your dedication to the team, and are you going to play through that injury knowing the risk factors? And from the sounds of it, he knew the risk of him playing. He knew that he could tear his Achilles at any time playing through that calf strain, and he decided to because he wanted to go out there. He wanted to win that championship. It was game 7. I don't blame the guy, but now I think a lot of people are going to start looking at it a little differently because, like it said, he's out for the next year. Indiana most likely isn't going to be a playoff contender without Halliburton because without Halliburton, I don't think they would have made it this far. So, how much are you going to risk in a career, or not a career, a season-ending injury for multiple seasons? Just to win one playoff game. Is it
Hmm.
worth it? And let's hope he comes back healthy because some people come back from an Achilles injury perfect. KD is an example. He came back okay. He's still playing great basketball. But look at Derrick Rose. After Derrick
Yeah.
Rose's injury, not
Hmm.
the same player. And it's because of that injury. So let's hope Tatum, Lillard, Hallie, they come back the same players, but this could derail some people's careers. So it's the players and the team sort of thinking longevity other than short term. Because I don't think no matter how much rest, if someone gets injured, you have to give them 4 to 5 weeks to get better. So are you going to take a 4 to 5 week NBA break every month or every other month? Like, I don't think that's just sustainable.
LeBron says yes. Yeah,
LeBron says yes, but it's
yeah.
because LeBron
Month
wants to
off.
control.
Yeah, exactly. Might as well be commissioner at this point. But yeah, altogether, yeah, I think you're right. I just think it's the style of play in the
Mhm.
NBA. It's going to be a tough. I think it's going to be a huge topic of discussion for Commissioner
Yeah.
Silver, this offseason. I'm curious to see what he does with it because he's probably already thinking about load management and how much that affects the game.
Hmm.
What workarounds to that are there coinciding with I think altogether I heard somewhere that there's like 8 to 10 Achilles tears
Yeah.
this season.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a brutal injury, can be decimating for some players. Other players come
Hmm.
back after a year and, play on. But, it really alters the landscape of not just that player, but that team altogether.
Hmm.
It affects odds. So like the Pacers next season, God
I don't.
knows, like, are they
I
even a
don't think.
playoff team?
I don't even think they're being thought about making the finals with what's
No.
going on.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, what deals do they want to remain
Hmm.
competitive? Are they willing to take a year off? Do they offload some of the players that played great this season to try to get
Yeah.
some value back for when Halliburton can return?
Hmm.
There's a lot on the table of what they have to do as a team and a franchise, and that's pretty brutal. And it kind of just coincides with a lot of that Indiana basketball history,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, but yeah, all of that is just kind of worth mentioning, worth thinking about because God knows where it's going to go.
Hmm.
But you know, that's a thought. But I don't know. It's a big topic. I'm curious how they kind of adjust things. People are calling for shorter seasons,
Hmm.
cutting it by like 20 games. Then, we're talking about the season ending in what, probably like mid-May, and it's
Yeah.
like, man, that's more of a gap. That doesn't help
Yeah.
us, but you're right. It could be we kind of were both against LeBron's month off. And it's like
Hmm.
it's almost like we brought up Stranger Things. It's like, you wait too long for something. Obviously, I'm still going to watch Stranger Things
Yeah.
and I would probably still continue watching the NBA, but it's like, where did we leave off?
Yeah.
And people can lose interest very easily,
Hmm.
like, and kind of pick up other hobbies or
Yeah.
topics that they're more interested into all of a sudden. So NBA's got a tough thing on their hands.
Yeah.
I don't envy that decision, but I do think they are going to implement something that will be a change this offseason. I think I see something coming. I'm not saying if it's going to be good or bad. Probably not going to do much, but I do think a change is coming somehow.
Yeah, we'll see. I do you think the NBA would be as successful with a shorter season, 20 less games? Like, do you think and the way and what I'm going to ask more is financially, do you think they'd be happy with that?
No,
No.
definitely not. I think that extending NBA games, having as many games as possible, much like the
Hmm.
NFL, MLB,
Yeah.
it's where you profit.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do teams start going divisionless?
Maybe.
Do you stop doing that? Do you make something like a series instead?
Hmm.
Like, Eastern Conference teams play Western Conference teams, what, twice a year?
Yeah.
You just do back-to-backs with those.
Hmm.
But then it's like, are you traveling to the East Coast to see them and then you're traveling back to the
Yeah.
West Coast? That probably won't work either. But I don't know. There's got
Yeah.
to be ways to figure it out. I think the Lakers in particular have a benefit. I know one part of the year it's like their Emmy road trip where they have to get
Hmm.
out of Staples,
LA.
and
Yeah.
and that's their benefit of having all those games at once and they can
Hmm.
stay back east or whatever. But I don't know, man. That's such a tough decision.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't think they would do that just because, like I say, I look at it from a business standpoint because that's what the NBA is. It's a business. Cutting 20 games for each team, that's cutting TV contracts to be less, stadiums, less money intake. That means less money for the owners. And let's just say it, some of these owners are greedy. Not all owners are like that, but
Yep.
some of these owners just care about the money. Um, so I don't see that. I think the big change, and like I said, this is not really an Adam Silver or NB or the NBA league doing. It's more teams. It's you just have to play more of your players. You have to play those deep bench players more and try to develop those teams to win to give your star players rest because load management will only go so far until they stop letting you do that. Um, but then the other thing, if you go with LeBron's take of taking a month off for the fine before the playoff series, it's for me, it's not going to make a difference because if you get a calf strain in your second round, you're still at risk for getting an Achilles tear, even though you had a month off. Because
Mhm.
these injuries happen at the most random time. Let's look at Aaron Rodgers. He tore his Achilles, what was it, game one, game two of the NFL season? He had a whole year of
Yep.
resting, rehabbing, getting ready, and it's just these freak accidents that you cannot control. So it's like, I don't think it'll make much of a difference taking that month off, other than stamina and cardio wise.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it with that point there because that was going to be my final thought that just crossed my mind was playing more of your bench.
Hmm.
And it kind of provokes another thought of like, is it bench players and just talent across the NBA is weaker now besides your top tier
Hmm.
talent that these players are just not matching up correctly with, the
Hmm.
rest of these guys that are out there, just weak benches,
Hmm.
altogether. But it almost needs to be strategized a bit better by these NBA coaches too. We're seeing it
Yeah.
a lot in the MLB where, Dave Roberts is notorious for it, where he's
Oh yeah.
throwing, say, Shohei out there for an inning and then goes
Yeah.
straight to the bullpen. It becomes a
Yeah.
bullpen game. It's a super popular thing to do.
Hmm.
And NBA coaches need to diversify it versus, hey, yeah, LeBron and Luca are not going to play today. It's going to be a
Hmm.
bench game. So not doing that, just minus their minutes a bit,
Hmm.
let them play, a
Yeah.
capped minute count, and then just have your bench players work in a
Yeah.
little bit better. Kind of treat it as if like you're in NASCAR and you
Yeah.
have to time your pit stops correctly in
Hmm.
order to get back and stay competitive in the race.
Yeah.
I think it's the same exact concept here. I develop a better bench. I don't know if
Hmm.
it means develop a better farm system of, NBA talent
Yeah.
and just kind of develop it. Maybe there's just a lack of development going on in the
I
NBA.
I I think that you hit it right, with those takes and the take I had. It's that farm system. It's the bench because this is one thing I will say is we and I hate to talk about the Clippers because I'll say I'm salty that this was our championship. We should have won.
Yeah.
We should have won after this Paul George debacle of a trade that I hated from the get-go.
Yeah.
But like if we would have kept Shea, and I always think about this, if we would have kept Shea, still traded for Paul George, would Shea have developed the same way having Paul George and Kawhi there? He might have not had the same amount of playing minutes, so he might have not developed into the player he is today. And
Hmm.
sometimes when some of these players leave that situation where they're just on the bench and go somewhere where they have more opportunity, they start shining. Neesmith, he was on the Celtics. He was a bench player, deep bench player, never really played, didn't have a name there. Went to Indiana, now has made a name for himself, and he has showed he is a great player. So it's about, like you mentioned, developing these bench players, trusting that bench, and like you mentioned, we got to limit stars minutes, but also having them play with these people at the bottom of your roster to help them develop because OKC did it right. They had a deep team to win a championship, and that's what it's probably going to take these next few years to win these championships is that deep roster.
For sure. Yeah. And it, minuses the amount of subtracts the amount of
Mhm.
miles that these players are running.
Yeah.
I read somewhere today that they're running over 200 miles a season.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. Like
It's a lot.
it's a ton. You take a guy like Steph Curry, that dude's all over the court. I think he's running like
Yeah.
5 miles a game, evidently. So yeah, development of bench players, helps with the soft tissue injuries in the long run. It's less wear and tear.
Hmm.
And, just I guess coaching probably needs to step up a little bit more
Yeah.
across the NBA. And, maybe that comes with consistency also. And these
Hmm.
owners need to stop firing people after
Yeah.
2 seasons when it's, carrying on from an old team. So
Yeah.
yeah, good luck, Suns. You're paying like
Yeah.
three coaches right now.
Yeah, no,
Congratulations.
it's crazy. Yeah, and I think the other thing with the developing the bench players is it's when things like this happen, Hallie doesn't have to play because they feel confident in their deep bench that they can still win
Yep.
games. Like that's what you have to do because then that keeps them healthy, keeps them ready for next year to make you competitive instead of having to figure out what you're going to do as the Indiana Pacers to make it to the playoffs. Because like I say, the playoff window for the East right now is open.
Oh yeah.
It's wide open, so let's see what happens and sort of going on to some of the players, someone that had the soft injury, the soft tissue injury and then the torn Achilles. And also you could somewhat call him a ring chaser, KD. He had his trade. So there's been rumors about him wanting to get traded. There were a few teams and he was traded to the Houston Rockets. Um, Here takes him because, KD's a past, you know, Golden State Warrior player.
Yeah, loved it when he obviously came to the Warriors, won two championships here, had two finals MVPs as well. Obviously made the difference, provided the difference. But ever since he left, that
Hmm.
success has gone out the window. He's teamed up with other very talented possible future Hall of Famers,
Hmm.
in Brooklyn, again in Phoenix. Nothing's clicked. And that's been my biggest argument with this trade altogether. I kind of had a back and forth with a Rockets fan on TikTok on one of the videos and kind of our discussion last week with Kevin
Hmm.
Durant, where, everything's going to kind of feel like an overpay for him. And certainly
Hmm.
I had that same feeling. Biggest argument that people have is, second rounders or, you can go through those quickly, like whatever. But five second rounders, that's, you have the possibility of getting a guy like Jokic.
Hmm.
There's obviously he's a diamond in a rough, but that chance is still out there. There's been other great second rounders that have, developed into phenomenal players. I think
Hmm.
Draymond, if I'm not mistaken, might have been a second rounder.
Yeah.
Um, but just in general, the talent's still there. If you're getting drafted in the second round of the NBA draft, like you're obviously great. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, that's certainly a thought. And then obviously to give up the number 10 pick, going along with Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, just kind of a throw in there. I don't like Dylan Brooks. I think he's annoying. Uh, Not a big fan of his. But altogether, yeah, I'm going to stand by my take of it feels like an overpay. He's going to be 37 years old by the time of this
Hmm.
season. I think for Kevin Durant personally, him going to the Rockets is good for him. I think it gives him a better shot at
Hmm.
winning in comparison to Phoenix. Do I think
Yeah.
Houston will win? No, I don't.
No.
OKC's better. Timberwolves are arguably better. Let's see if the Warriors make a deal.
Hmm.
Those are three right off the bat. Clippers are a very good team. There's a lot of talent out there. Blazers just made a deal we'll talk about. Denver's still
Hmm.
there. A lot of those teams are going to be right there with them.
Yeah.
Houston, although great, we kind of talk about experience. They don't have a whole lot of it.
Mm-mm.
They're very new to the scene in a way. Um, Great elements. I think that they retained a lot of the players that they're hoping for. Again, I feel like this is overpay. In the future, this is a win now situation, very similar to what Orlando did
Hmm.
getting Desmond Bain. But those 5 second round picks plus the 10th overall, that's your future that you're risking. So that's the
Yeah.
risk I was talking about. The Rockets fans said it wasn't a risk. I still feel like it is. But he or she brought up great points too, though. I won't take that away. Brought up stats, how, Kevin Durant went to Brooklyn, dealt with injury, not him himself dealt with
Hmm.
injuries, but teammates dealt with injuries. Then he goes to Phoenix, and that's just a hot mess franchise, which, it really is.
Hmm.
But when the injuries happen, a guy like KD who has the amount of pay he has is, two-time NBA Finals
Yeah.
MVP. He needs to step up and take over.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Who cares about injuries at that point? That is what you're paid for. That
Hmm.
is what you're traded so much for, like all these huge trades, that go on.
Yeah.
He needs to step up and take over. So that's my take on him. I think it's good for KD. I think it's a better position for him. Don't have a lot of faith in the Rockets yet, but I do think they'll be very good in a playoff team. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're a winner. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I'm glad it was in the Clippers. I know we were sort of in a conversation,
Yeah.
because we talked about it. I don't want to give up what we would have to give up to get KD. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think he's a difference maker, and we've been burnt so many times. I know it's a win now situation, and people think, the picks don't matter. Look at the picks we gave OKC. And I always hate to go back to it, but the picks we gave OKC helped them win the championship. It took 5, 6 years, but that's how you develop a team. And I think it's great for KD. I think they will be a playoff threat, but I don't think he's the same type of player that could take a team to the championship. You know, the rest of that roster still very young, still needs a lot of work. Um, but coaching wise, they have a great coach. So we sort of talked about it with Rick Carlisle. Indiana was there because of coaching. I think a big reason. Houston's coach, he could probably do it. A little weird sometimes, but still a great coach. He
Yeah.
could do it, but the West is going to be so stacked. OKC, Denver, Golden State. You always have to put the Lakers in there because the Lakers are a team to talk about. Clippers, depending on what we do, we might be, a conversation Minnesota. So you're gonna have to go through a big battle, and I don't know if KD is up for that battle. Um, and then yeah, the number one pick, it's a number 10 pick. A number 10 pick is a great pick in the NBA draft. That's your future right there. Second round picks, I pulled up most notable second round picks. We have Nikola Jokic. He was the number 41 pick. Manu Ginobili was a number two pick, second round at 57. Draymond Green, Dennis Rodman was in the second round. Alex English, Gilbert Arenas, Paul Millsap, and Marc Gasol. So look at the talent. It's rare to find this talent, but you could find that talent in the second round, and especially like we talked about, with our previous little topic, it's about how you develop that bench player, how you develop these players. It's about player development and about having the farm system. And I think that's how some of these teams have to start looking at it. It's like, what is our farm system? Who are our prospects that could come up and help us win a game? And Rockets give up a lot of that. Because do you feel like the Suns are going to still play with this team, or do you think they're ready to blow up the team and just develop gain draft picks? Because I feel like they might just start getting draft picks.
Oh, they're going to blow it up. Yeah, I think they completely and utterly want out of that Beal deal,
Yeah,
because that's probably the worst
yeah,
contract
it is.
in the NBA. It's horrific, and I think Devin Booker's the only guy worth holding.
Mhm.
I saw something like a meme. I think literally all they have is guards right now.
Yeah.
So it's all shooting guards. So it's literally time to just eh, explode that roster altogether,
Yeah.
draft well, and just accumulate draft picks. That's just the way that they need to do it. Capitalize on that, develop,
Hmm.
and start fresh, especially with a new owner. Obviously,
Yeah.
tried to go in there and do all these huge deals, and it just didn't work out. And quite frankly, it's almost kind of cliche at this point. The NBA is a superstar league. You just go
Yeah.
after big names, and that's again why I kind of feel like this Kevin Durant deal is like you're going after the name. I know he averaged 27 points a game,
Hmm.
but if you look at some of those games, it just looked like he just didn't care. And I don't
Hmm.
know if it's just because of what was going on in Phoenix, but
Yeah.
quite frankly, I don't care if you have that attitude at all. That
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
It's a lot to give up.
It's a lot to give up for that. And like I say, maybe he'll be the prime Kevin Durant from Golden State that helped you win two championships.
Yeah.
Maybe, but that's a big if. And you're
Yeah.
gambling a lot, and like I say, take it from a team that we've been paying superstars, giving up draft assets to bring superstars, thinking it was a win now. It's not successful. Like I say, the
Nope.
Clippers, we've done it for many years. We traded Kyrie, that first round pick that Cleveland had for Kyrie. That was our first round pick, you know.
Mhm.
look what we could have had. We could have had championships, but we were playing a different game, and I think OKC showed it's time to change it up a bit. Indiana too, all drafted stars. I think the only one that came is Siakam and Hallie, but still,
Mhm.
you're not giving up multiple first round picks for Hallie. They got Hallie on the deal.
Yeah,
So it's gonna be interesting to sort of see what Houston does. I liked Houston as a team. I think they still have great opportunity, but it's just what KD they get.
for sure. Yeah, and let's see how he meshes with Ime Udoka as their
Hmm.
coach because he's a no-nonsense guy. So
Yeah.
if he sees any antics, I'm sure he's not going to put up with it. He doesn't care who you
Hmm.
are. He wants to get the most out of you. So
Yeah.
let's see what happens. Again, 37-year-old Kevin Durant, phenomenal player. He's a Hall of Famer, but
Hmm.
let's see what you get out of him. I just think that was an awful lot to still give up. Uh, but when now mode, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's what they did. So um, I do think it makes Houston better. Don't get me
Hmm.
wrong.
Yeah.
Right now it does, but you're relying on right now.
Yeah.
So,
And I think the second part of the question I had for this, how many more years do you think KD has?
hmm. Well, isn't this kind of a contract year for him?
I think so.
So, man, imagine he doesn't resign with Houston
Hmm.
after this, and then they gave up all that. See,
Imagine.
another risk. Um, Honestly, he's already gone through an Achilles tear. It's brutal. He's a
Yeah.
lot of miles on those legs.
Yeah.
I, God, maybe 2 years.
2 years max. I have 2 years max because, like I said, he ended the season on a pretty bad injury that he had to be sidelined for quite a few games.
Right?
I don't think his body could keep up. We talk about it. When is he going to hang it up? We think LeBron's getting close, but he's also older. He's been in the league for a while. KD, I think if he has a bad injury, he might consider hanging it up. And you gave up everything for 1 year at KD. And if
Right.
he doesn't play in the playoffs, that's a that's a big L.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because let's see what those draft picks turn into.
Hmm.
Could be looking back at we do it with Paul George. Sorry to keep bringing it up, John.
No, yeah.
We do it with Paul George and see what those picks turned into. We
Yeah.
could be doing the same thing with Kevin Durant in this trade. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
or it could be, hey, goes there, gets a ring, all
Yeah.
worth it, right
All
then
worth
and
it.
there.
Yeah.
So,
So
interesting. We'll pay attention to it.
yeah. Yeah. And the other trade that happened just I think a few minutes or a few hours before we came on to record. Celtics trading Drew Holiday to the Blazers for Anfree Simmons and some second round picks. Um, Blazers know you get Drew Holiday on your team, you're going to win a championship because that's what's happened every time he switches teams.
Yeah.
I think they're gambling, they're taking a big chance on that, but Boston's making the changes.
Yep.
They're starting their trades. We heard about the rumors that they were gonna implode that team, especially with Jason Tatum most likely out for the entire season. It's time for them to think about their long-term future and free Simmons and some second round picks. I think it's a good start for them.
I it's not really a fleecing of a deal, but man, they came out of this really well.
Hmm.
I think that was a great haul
Yeah.
for Drew Holiday, and that's quite frankly just the start. Kristaps going to get a little bit less of
Yeah.
what they got in return for Drew, but you never know. Maybe there's a desperate team out there
Hmm.
needing a big Phoenix. I don't know. Um, Imagine Bradley Beal to Celtics.
Yeah.
In place.
We'll see.
Just a swap there. That'd be crazy. But altogether, Anthony's he's a great player.
Hmm.
He's I think just I forget what he did last year, but the year before, didn't he average like mid-20s a game?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's solid guard, solid
Hmm.
player. I think that this is a great replacement
Hmm.
in comparison to Drew Holiday. Uh, you know, as you said, it was rumored that they were going to make this deal. Didn't know what it was going to be for, but the Celtics front office does a great job.
Hmm.
So this was a good deal for them. Let's see what happens. Blazers. Um, I don't know. It's hard to trust anything that the Blazers do. They
Yeah.
just have such a bad history of meh. Um, Drew Holiday, kind of low key feel bad for him. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know. The Blazers, they have DeAndre Ayton. Um, they have, don't they have a good small forward over there?
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even think of the names because, like I say, it's not that big of a team, and they only have the number 11 pick, in this year's draft. So we'll see. I think the Blazers are sort of
Scoot Henderson, sorry.
yeah,
He's good. Not as good as they thought.
yeah, yeah. We'll see what the Blazers do. I don't think it really helps the Blazers much. I know for the Celtics, it helps the Celtics and also clears up cap space because Drew Holiday was, a pricey contract. And that shows that they're prepping for their next big move because Celtics want to stay relevant and they want to continue winning championships. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, like I say, Drew Holiday, usually whoever gets him on his first season win a championship the last few years that he's made the move. So we'll see. Maybe the Blazers will be that surprise team that pop up.
Imagine. Yeah, that'd be insane. And
That
then
would
just
be.
keep Drew Holiday's legacy going.
Yeah.
One quick question though, John, about the Celtics.
Mhm.
Do you think they go as far as getting rid of Jaylen Brown?
Yeah. I
Oh
think Jalen
wow.
Brown's gone.
Okay.
I think they could get a good haul
Hmm.
if you could get
Oh yeah.
a first rounder, a few, second rounders, and two decent players for what
Hmm.
they got for KD. For Jalen Brown, you're going to get a lot more. Desmond
Oh yeah.
Bain, you got multiple first round picks. There's going to be a team that thinks Jalen Brown is that one difference maker that you're going to get a nice haul back for. Because, like I say, the mindset for a lot of people are win now. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers make a type of trade like that. I hope it's not them, just because I
Hmm.
don't even think we have first rounders to give up. But there's going to be a team, Denver could use a player like him, you know,
Hmm.
with the Joker. Like that'd be a good team.
For sure. I think my Warriors have been kind of thrown in there.
Hmm.
Um, Jaylen Brown went to Cal,
Yeah,
went to college
homegrown.
locally. Yeah. And obviously has nothing to do with the Warriors, but it's he's familiar with the area and
Hmm.
um we have some assets that we could
You do.
provide to the Celtics, in the way of Pods, Kuminga,
Hmm.
and some other folks for sure.
Yeah,
But could be coming out west. Let's see. Makes
yeah,
the West more competitive.
yeah,
But yeah, Clippers, same exact thing. They have a lot to give. Let's see
yeah.
how far
They're
they go with though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see. But yeah, I think Jalen Brown will be going, especially with this year. No Tatum. They got to think about their future because Tatum is the future, not Jalen Brown. So, yeah, we'll see. And with the future, one of the things happening on Wednesday with NBA draft is here. So, looking at a mock draft, this is per CBS Sports. Well, just to go over real quick. Cooper Flag, consensus number one, I think, still with Dallas
Mhm.
Mavericks. Um, Seems like Dallas is going to keep it. I know we talked about Dallas could be crazy enough to trade him. We'll see. There's still 2 days. Uh, Second round or second pick, San Antonio getting Dylan Harper. I think we all thought it was between him and, well, we'll talk a little bit about it. Ace Bailey, going
Mhm.
to San Antonio, but Dylan Harper looks like he's the number two pick. And number three, I think prior to to when the draft was decided, the lottery, uh, Ace Bailey was the number three pick. Now it's Trey Johnson from Texas. So, he's been rising. VJ Edgecombe going to the Hornets at number four, another riser. Then number five, Knuppel from Duke going to
Mhm.
Utah Jazz, and then Ace Bailey. So Ace Bailey dropped four picks. Big drop for a guy that was one of the top players this year. What do you think about that, Tim?
Where do they have him going?
Washington Wizards.
Yeah, played yourself to that one. Whew. Um,
Yeah.
I I can't personally, I cannot stand when I see players deny workouts like
Hmm.
this. I think it's I think it comes across very egotistical
Yeah.
when you're pretty unproven. Ace Bailey, I'm sure, he's a
Yeah.
tremendous talent. He's a great player, but at the same time, you you can't really pick and choose. Like,
Mm-mm.
it's like, no, I don't want to go to this team. I don't want to go. It's like you're not the one picking.
Yeah.
People are Franchises are picking you. They sign your paycheck.
Hmm.
That's just the way it works. So I I'm just not a fan of when players start doing this. And I think it's a terrible image and just leads to a lot more. And, you know, in a bigger scope of things, is this kind of turning into something where we're learning more about his personality? Like,
Yeah.
is this his decision? Is it a family member's? Is it an agent's?
Hmm.
I guess we'll come to see, but I saw a clip today of like um a person talking to the Pennsylvania governor, I believe, and said, "Oh yeah, we got to stay away from Ace Bailey. Let's not draft him, blah blah blah." And the governor agreed, and he's like, "Yeah, if he doesn't want to be there, and he's showing that he doesn't want to be there, why does the franchise want to waste their time on that?" And I think that's completely valid from a franchise standpoint as well. It's like, do you
Hmm.
really want to draft somebody who doesn't want to be there? And you go
Yeah.
through all of the antics and, just this and that proves that way. In a different sport, Brandon Ayuk is doing the
Hmm.
same exact thing to the 49ers, and it's driving me insane. It's like, dude, if you don't want to be there, ask for a trade. Get the hell out of there. But
Hmm.
not a big fan of it. Kind of a bit of a rant of mine right there. But
Yeah.
I just he's too good on the court to be doing stuff like this, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I think that he should be thrilled to go anywhere, honestly.
Hmm.
What do
No,
you
yeah,
think?
I totally agree. There's only a few players that could be doing that, and that's usually that number one pick. That should be Cooper Flag. That sort of says, I'm not going to work out with this team. I want to go here. Um, and it'll happen. Ace Bailey, great player, but not that top pick. There's still a lot of players. Dylan Harper, I think, was always ranked a little higher than him. So it's like your teammates higher than you, and you're acting that way. I'm reading here, it's saying it seems like he refused working out because he wanted to force his way to Washington or New Orleans. Um, I don't think I don't really think that's where it is because his representation seems to believe that's where he will have the most immediate opportunity. So it seems like for him, he wants to play for a team where he's going to play immediately. Because if you think about it, San Antonio, he might not be a starter right away, depending on what that team looks like. They're already solid with Wemby. They had a great season this last year. A lot of their young players stepped up, so he would probably be rolling the bench. 76ers, that's always a solid team. He probably doesn't want to sit on the bench, but it's like that's a team that could honestly win if they get everything clicking, you
Mhm.
know. And then the Hornets, like I say, Hornets, you'll start immediately. Everybody that gets drafted, top 10 starts in the Hornets. Utah, same thing. Utah's always a disaster, so you'll be starting there. So Washington, I don't know what he sees in Washington. I don't see too much there. So best of luck to him. But yeah, him acting like he could, you know, decide where he's gonna go. No, be grateful you're going to the NBA because he still may drop because of his attitude. We've seen it
Mhm.
happen. Um, we saw it in the NFL with Shador Sanders. He dropped from a top quarterback pick to way later the draft,
Mhm.
so Ace Bailey could drop and he's gonna lose money for it. He could still play. A team's gonna love getting him in the second round, but his paycheck, he's gonna have to earn it, to be able to get a big contract.
Right. And then I think teams need to start looking at things like, when it comes up, let's just say Ace Bailey goes to the Wizards
Hmm.
and he goes there. Let's just say he averages 25 a game,
Yeah.
but the team is consistently second to last in the East,
Hmm.
playing pitifully as they normally do.
Hmm.
Um, like at a certain point, that franchise needs to recognize this guy, although great, isn't proving anything as
Hmm.
far as winning goes. So he's not taking you over that ledge
Yeah.
of, that next step. So why dump $50 million a year into a player like
Yep.
that? You know, although great, he's not winning.
Hmm.
In sorry, LeBron, rings and winning means a lot.
It
So
means a lot.
um, it's like, yeah, go get your minutes, but then are
Yeah.
you just hoping that's going to turn into a big contract? Although it,
Yeah.
it very well might be, because that's history speaks for itself, but like, you're not going to be known as much. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're getting all this money. Bradley Beal's a good example. It's like he was in Washington. They didn't really
Mm.
win, but he averaged a ton of night and played
Yeah.
well there. But the Wizards sucked.
Yeah.
They still weren't great. So,
Yeah.
you know, is that what
And,
he's looking for in a
yeah.
career?
And now you're paying him and he still sucks. And now he sucks for
Yeah.
real on a different team, with
Right.
stars. Yeah, and he still can't win. So
Yep.
yeah, it's not gonna help work out for the kiddo. Um, but we'll see. Hopefully he seems like a great player. Let's
Hmm.
see what happens. But yeah, not a good look for him dropping to from number 3 to number 6. That's a big loss in your paycheck too. And like I said, he can still drop within the next 2 days, depending on what we hear from other camps. Um, but yeah, Ace Bailey's at 6, 7, Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma going to New Orleans. They need a point guard. That'll be a good spot. Nets, Kuman Mulash from Duke, freshman center. They got their big guy. Toronto picking up a point guard. Let's see. The Suns, Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina. Don't know him too much. Power forward though, so sort of making up that size,
Hmm.
with KD's departure. Portland, Carter Bryant, a small forward, so I think also at for Simmons, making up that piece with trading him. Let's see these big names. Derek Queen, Maryland freshman center, going to the OKC Thunder at 15.
Ooh, damn,
That's it's a little
it's
scary
crazy.
right there.
Yeah.
Liam McNeely, I think he was a big shooter for Connecticut, freshman, going to Memphis. I'm curious what Memphis is going to do, you know,
Yeah.
trading Bane. Let's see if John Morant's on the move as well.
Heard some
Um,
speculation on that possibility.
yeah. The Timberwolves, Igor Demon from BYU. So that'll be a nice little, nice little play. Uh, Another big name. Walter Clayton Jr., a big name for the March Madness this year from Florida,
Yep.
the senior, going in the Miami Heat. So
Okay.
getting a shooter.
Yeah.
Um, Danny Wolf, another big name for Michigan, power forward going to New Orleans. Thunder, Thomas Sorber from Georgetown, a center, freshman. So that's their second number one. So two big players. So
It's
I think
crazy.
they realize, Hardenstein did well, but the last two series wasn't a big factor the way he was at the beginning.
Right.
Um, and Chet, is this a sign that Chet might be a good trade asset right now?
Talked about it.
Giannis,
Uh-huh.
Giannis, like I say, why are you picking up two centers when you already have two
Yep.
centers that won you a championship? So we'll see.
Exactly.
Um, Jace Richardson going from Michigan State going to Orlando Magic.
Would be a good ad. Yeah.
That would be a good ad.
His dad played there, right? For a little bit.
I think for a little bit.
Jason.
Yeah.
I think he was quick pit stop there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are the big names in the first round, so it'll be interesting. Like I said, there still could be a lot of changes, but draft wise, it'll be good to see Wednesday what these teams do.
Hmm. Yeah, let's see if trade bait, obviously. Um, Draft night, trades are a possibility.
Hmm.
And then quickly speaking of Memphis, another big name on that team is Jaren Jackson. I'm
Hmm.
curious if, I absolutely love my Warriors to go get him. We need a big. He's athletic. He's a beast. Be a great
Yeah.
addition. So he's maybe a name that could float out there after that Bain trade. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's see. Be a
Yeah,
fun draft night.
yeah, it'll be a fun draft night. Like I say, I think it's always fun because there's only 2 rounds, so you sort of have to see what you get. It's your future for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, because you guys, how many picks do you guys have this year? I think we only have one for the Clippers. Golden State, you got the 41st pick.
Mhm.
I think that's it, maybe.
Didn't we trade it away with the Butler trade?
Maybe. I think your other ones.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Or th-
But who knows? Maybe you guys will trade into the draft if something pops up. I think you sent me the video
yeah.
of the Chinese player,
Oh
center.
yeah,
That guy.
he looks
He,
great.
he looks good. He
Very
has the
good.
shot. He has the ball handling skills, and you guys need a nice center.
Yeah, he's vocal on the court.
Hmm.
Just letting people know. This
Yeah.
I like the guy's style, man. He'd
Yeah.
be really fun to watch.
Yeah. So we'll see if he gets drafted. But
Hmm.
I think he's going up on the draft boards, but that's NBA. Like I say, there might not be as much NBA talk for us until we get more trades, more changes, to some of these teams and after draft night. Because like I said, there could be some draft day trades on Wednesday. So
Hmm.
um but another trade that happened a while ago, and it's a different sports, Devers. We talked about it. Tim was very excited. Mostly just want to get your take. How are you feeling with Devers so far, Tim?
Oh, I love it. I'm so super happy. Yeah, no, it's incredible. He brings, the power to the team that we were needing, what I was talking about,
Hmm.
to support our pitching. He's had his ups and downs, but he got his first giant home run against the Red Sox. That was pretty
Hmm.
fun to watch. And, he's just a big bat that we need. I hope we go out and add another one. Hope we call up Eldridge. He's raking down in AAA.
Yeah,
Um, overall, I still think we absolutely fleeced this trade.
you do.
There's no doubt in my mind. And I absolutely love it. Seems like Devers is very happy to be here too.
Hmm.
So thrilled with it. I think it's a huge difference maker. I think it's made us so much more competitive with just one player. So
Yeah, it
um
has.
yeah, no, he's
Nice.
phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
he's been good. He's been hitting. He's been getting on base, and yeah, hitting his first giant home run against his old team. That's just a slap in the face for the Red Sox. I'm sorry to say.
It is. And he went oppo. He went to
Yeah,
hit a bomb out to left field, and Giants, it's not an easy stadium
yeah.
to hit a home run at. So he hit it well, and he's gonna love Triples Alley as well. That was where his
Hmm.
first hit went as a Giant. So
Yeah,
yep, nope, he's the best.
good.
Thrilled to have
Yeah,
Devers.
nice, nice.
Great guy.
And then one other topic with baseball, because like I said, there wasn't too much baseball, but we saw it with, I think it was the Angels and Astros game.
Mhm.
Um, there's been a lot of batters getting hit. It happened a lot the last series, Dodgers, Padres. I had a lot of posts about it on my TikTok. If you haven't seen
Oh
them,
yeah,
go watch them. A lot
very
of
entertaining.
back and forth with some people, but and it's just causing a lot more bench clearing incidents during games. For you, Tim, you're the bigger baseball person. Good, bad for baseball? What do you think?
I think it's good. I, I maybe this is not the tick people want to hear, but I think it's good because this is what baseball really used to be.
Hmm.
It has, I don't know if soft is the right word, but it's getting more competitive. And hey, you be my player, I'm gonna go be your player.
Hmm.
Like, we saw it with Dodgers Padres, like you said, you know, they hit Tatis, then they go hit Otani, and then bench is clear and they all come
Yeah.
on the field. It makes for a slew of great entertaining clips that you get from the fans, you get from field cameras, umpire cams, you name it. I love it. I think that, you look back on history where you have managers arguing with umps, you have benchers clearing brawls, you have people charging the mound. I think that it brings a factor to baseball
Hmm.
that doesn't make it so bland. I think that hockey at times, for example, it's a lot of back and forth for sure. But then when they drop mitts and
Yeah.
start socking each other in the face, I think that's wildly entertaining to have happen,
Yeah.
during the middle of the match. And I think the crowd goes crazy. I sent you that clip of, Astros Angels,
Hmm.
in the hit batter, Hunter Brown hitting, Nito,
Yeah,
and and that was like I said, that was the loudest I've heard Angel Stadium in
yeah.
quite some time. So I think it's making a difference with the fans,
Yeah.
and I quite frankly, I think it's competitive. I think it's fun. Obviously, you don't want to see people get hurt,
Hmm.
but if it's like a back and forth kind of thing like that, each team gets warned,
Yeah.
man, it gets you on the edge of your seat and really into a game. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Yeah.
it can be very entertaining. It can hurt a lot for the player that gets hit, but
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to watch. I don't hate it, I know at times it's accidental because
Mhm,
I did get a lot of those comments. It's like, oh, you can't control a pitch at 90 plus miles per hour. I was like, no, you're a professional. You can,
mhm,
yeah, if you're gonna go inside, that's where the risk comes, because if you do lose it just quite a little bit, it makes a big difference.
mhm,
But I'm like, no, some of these, I'm like, that was just intent. And there's no doubt about it. And that's why I went back and forth, I think, with the Dodgers and Padres. You know, I'll say the Tatis ones, I think one of them was accidental, one of them I think was intentional. I think the last one because the last hit we had on him, I think it was game 4 of the series. It was one of our minor league pitchers that we got out there to try to get pitching because we struggle with pitching. So we need to develop our farm system and by giving them that live game action. So
mhm.
that's the type of player that might not be able to control as well as the stars already in the big show. But all the ones on Shohei, they that was intentional. I you can't tell me otherwise, Padre fans, that
Mhm.
we just couldn't control the pitches. No, you guys are just mad. This is the way you guys get back, and I understand it. We hit your player 1 for 1. Um, but I like the way Otani handled it, knowing that that's what might have happened. He told the team not to come out, and then whatever
Mhm.
he told the Padres bench or the Padres dugout. I'm
Mhm.
curious. I don't think I've read anywhere what he said exactly, but he's just a stand-up guy, and that's why he's MVP, and that's why we just are always going to own the Padres.
Yeah, no, he's extremely classy. And I'm obviously not a fan of the Dodgers, but I am a fan of Shohei. I think
Yeah.
he's a lifetime generational, arguably
Hmm.
the best player of all time type of guy.
Yeah.
So he's yeah, and you're exactly right. Those were intentional. One thing I will say is that series actually made me really not like the Padres manager for some reason. I think what he was yelling at Paje saying like, "Oh, who do you think you are?" kind of
Yeah.
thing. Dude, who are you? Like you're a new manager for the Padres as well.
Yeah.
Like chill,
Yeah.
like
I put it in my post. I'm like, you're a manager on your second year with,
mhm,
I think it was he's on a 3-4 year contract, so there's no trust in you already. You're in
right.
St. Louis. You've never won a playoff series. What's gonna change with these Padres? And especially with this year, going against the teams that are in the NL, they might not even make it into the wild card because Giants are playing a lot better baseball, you
Mhm,
know? So
yeah.
it's like, who do you think you are? I just thought it was funny. I'm like, come on, man. We don't know who you are.
Could we go as far to say that that's Bob Melvin's team and that's why the Giants are now having success and he's
Maybe.
just carrying on that success?
Yeah.
That's why I was thrilled to get Bob Melvin up here
Hmm.
because he did a great job with the A's because the A's are obviously not doing well now, but when he was with the A's,
Hmm.
it was a good team. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's a good manager. And, again, Padres manager could be good, but he has a lot to prove still.
Yeah.
Um, but I appreciate the villain style, especially with Machado and
Yeah.
um, all those guys. So it was entertaining. for
Yeah.
sure. And I think across the league, it's very entertaining. Red Sox Yankees is always entertaining. Baseball needs it.
Yeah.
They're desperate, and I think this is
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see more of it because there's a lot of tempers flaring. Like you say, the Nito with the Houston Astros, they look pissed at each other, both the pitcher and the hitter. So it
Mhm.
looks like we might be seeing more of this, and it's not a bad thing. Hopefully nobody really gets injured from it. Um, but it's gonna bring eyes to baseball because I think people are watching because they want to see who's next.
Yeah, and they need big personalities. Like a quick
Hmm.
thing I'll bring up, like in the past at Atlanta Braves pitcher John Rocker, I
Hmm.
always hated that dude. And he would come out there, it looked like it's like, dude, did somebody just like, hock a loogie in your sunflower seeds before you got out there? Why are you so angry all the time? And
Yeah.
he goes out there just jawing at players and um yeah, it's but those types of personalities in the game. I don't know.
Hmm.
If you get emotional about a player, like angry, happy, whatever, it gets you more entertained and more
Yeah.
likely to watch. So, again, I think it's good for baseball. And it's been a
Yeah.
fun season.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's good for baseball. I think of Major League the movie. Everybody like Wild Thing, that
Oh yeah,
type of
it's
pitcher.
great.
It's like that's what you want to see. And I say Major League's not a real baseball or it's not real baseball happening, but it's a baseball movie and it's a movie everybody loves and what they love to watch. The
Yeah.
fights, that intensity. So hopefully we see more of it. Like I say, I think after All-Star break, we might see a lot more of it because it's getting close to put that playoff push.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Home
Yeah.
Run Derby, All Stars coming up.
Yeah.
Hope it'll be good, fun to watch. I just
Yeah.
want to hear Chris Berman.
Yeah.
Back, 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 back. It's so
Yeah.
the best part.
It'll be good. But yeah.
Hmm.
And then last thing we have sort of is just our movie recap. So there were two more movies that came out this week. We had Elio and 28 Years Later. Uh,
Hmm.
totals. So Elio made 20 million over the past weekend domestically.
Quick
And
thing on
then,
that though. I heard
yeah,
that's like the lowest Pixar movie in ever, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, it's crazy.
It's
Still a
really
lot of
bad.
money though. 20 million, not bad.
It is.
But for what they spent, I think I read that they spent up to 300 million on making the movie.
Ooh,
So
Jesus.
not a
Not
good.
bad.
Yeah, and then 28 years later made 30 million. So
Okay.
I think they made pretty much what it cost to make the film. I think it was about 30 million that they spent.
Yep.
So in total, as of right now, Tim, you're at 57 million
You're
for your
whooping me.
three movies, and I am at 113 million.
Jesus. Jurassic
So,
World, Fantastic Four. Let's go.
but you have your top two. I have my number one and my number three and four still out there. But like I say, Megan 2.0 is the one that might hurt me quite a bit. F1, I think that's one. If you like the racing, it might be a popular one. And then
Mhm.
Superman, I'm gonna have to hope that one makes the most to just put me over the top.
That could have been my biggest debacle, John, was not going Superman 1A
Eh.
and going Fantastic Four. But we'll see, you know?
Yeah, they're both gonna be great movies. It just depends on what the first 2 days go and what all the reviews are. Because I think
Yeah.
that's what everybody listens to is reviews on TikTok, Instagram, and I'll sort of talk a little bit about it. 28 years later, saw it this
Yes.
weekend. I enjoyed the movie, but I think everybody has seen the TikToks, and I did post a little video of my thoughts, spoiler free um, review of the movie. If you're watching this and you haven't seen the movie, just know there might be some spoilers that I will share.
Mhm.
Um, but overall, I thought it was a great film. The first half of the film really reminded me of 28 Days Later, the original one. Have you seen both of them? 28 Days and 28 Weeks?
Shame on me, I have not.
No.
I have not. No, but
So,
clips, especially I've seen movie theater clips of 28
yeah.
years later, people filming in the theater. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. But like the beginning of it, if you've seen those first two movies, the style of it, the way the zombies are running, very very similar. Really good scenes, really good zombie scenes. The story was good. And then it's the second half where I think a lot of people sort of didn't like it because of the story. It did slow down quite a bit, not as much zombie chasing, zombie features. And the few zombie features that they did have, a lot of people are complaining about that third leg. And
Hmm.
if you've seen the clips, you've seen exactly what it is. And I will say a little excessive. Didn't have to see it that much, but that's what the director wanted to show. That's what the director decided to do. Doesn't really take away from, doesn't make it a bad movie for me. It's just, okay, I'm just gonna ignore that or try to ignore it. It's a little just there,
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
but the story, I thought it was still pretty good. Um, It gets a little sad, I will say, for Vera. I don't know if she's watching or listening or hears this, but she shed some tears because it is a very touching story towards the end of the family dynamic. So
Mhm.
overall good. And then what I'll say about the last scene. I think you've seen a lot of clips about the
Power
last
Rangers.
scene, the Power Rangers,
Yeah.
the parkour, whatever people want to call it. It was a little much when I saw it, but I did connect it immediately to the beginning of the movie. If you
Okay.
see the beginning of the movie, you see somewhat of a connection. And then when reading into what the whole story was with, I'll share a little bit, the Jimmys, it's going to be based off Jimmy Savile. So this is a British English media personality and DJ from like the early 90s, did a lot of kid show, did a lot of that stuff. Very very well known in England. I think was even I saw an interview that he was with the Prince at that time, the Prince of England, being like this is one of the best guys. But then in about '09 there was a lot of stories about him doing a lot of sexual abuse essay towards youth and adults. And a lot of it's disturbing. And from what they're saying is this is going to take a dark turn into the movies. So, they made it seem funny because I think Jimmy Savile was sort of in connection to like Teletubbies in England. So that's why the colorful stuff, the Power Ranger things, it connects a bit. But, you know, the movie's supposed to happen in like 2003, 4 when the zombie outbreak happens. And Seville, he wasn't really found out about this until like probably '09. So based off the movie timeline, he's still a hero in England. So imagine, and this is just me thinking, imagine he has survived the zombie apocalypse and now he's created his little cult of crazy people,
Mhm.
how crazy gnarly could this be? Of yeah, you have to be worried about zombies, but now you have to be worried about people in these cults, which will be crazy. So there's a documentary about him on Netflix that I want to watch to sort of just get a little bit more understanding of what he did and sort of see like how crazy this next movie could get. But overall for me, 28 years later, great movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
For sure. Yeah, no, great synopsis. I thought it was a great review that you gave on TikTok as well. Everybody should go check that out. And the the clip I was talking about where the person was filming in the theater and it showed like the Power Rangers scene, the parkour,
Yeah.
just reminded me of like Twilight. You
Yeah.
know, it was like crazy, flips and stuff. I'm like, man, that's wild. Kids got great aim with that bow and arrow. That was pretty
Yeah.
badass.
Yeah.
Um, but it looks like a great a good film. I think
Mhm.
that what it did at the box office seems great. You said three-part movie series, right?
Yeah, so it's
The
a three part. The second part was already filmed, so it's already in
oh,
production.
cool.
The director producer shared that he's already seen the rough cut of it, and he says it's really good.
Okay.
And I think they're sort of waiting to see how this works out to sort of finance that last part, which I think they probably will.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, very good. I'm obviously kind of a beginner to this series, but is 28 Days Later the one where he abandons the chick in the house and then like runs to the dock and gets on the boat to drive away? Is that the one?
That's 28 weeks later. That's the second part.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
Which
good.
is a great movie, one of the best, I think one of the scariest, intense opening zombie scenes of a film.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. No, okay. Yeah. No, I got to get on that binge with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, great synopsis. Glad you enjoyed the
Yeah.
film. Yeah, no, I mean, we're in the midst of such a great month of movies. I think
It
what
is.
Jurassic Park this week, right?
No,
Or is it
it's
next week?
F1 this week.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. F1
Um,
this week. Is it end of the month? End of towards the end of
I
July
I think
for
that's when Jurassic World comes out. Let me see. July 2nd. So 4th of July week. So next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Good
So
deal.
that's why that one that was a good pick because like I said, it's a longer weekend, holidays, people are out, so they need to watch something. And when it's hot the way it is right now, movie theaters are nice and cool.
That's exactly right. That's the time to go. And yeah, no, it's a good time to get out and go to the theater. Hopefully you have a good local one with good
Yeah.
concessions. I saw quick little side tangent here. Belgium has got it down with
Do
concessions.
they?
Yeah, it made some theaters here look a little poverty. We need to up our
Oh
game.
man.
But they had like, it looked like you're walking to a chocolate factory and, scooping all of it into a bag and making your own customizable,
Oh,
candy
nice.
bags. And I'm like, man, that would be trouble for me. And then you go weigh your bag at the end, I'm sure, and pay an obscene amount of money.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's great. And then another little side tangent here, John. Sorry.
Hmm.
Scarlett Johansson, she's in Jurassic World, correct?
Hmm.
They had the premiere, I believe, over this past
I
weekend
think so,
of the
yeah.
film, and
Hmm.
kind of what caught headlines was Scarlett Johansson giving a big smooch to her co-star, or not her husband, on the red carpet, and people were commenting saying, "Wow, she's more affectionate with her co-star versus her own husband in public." And I thought that was
Uh,
funny, but that's just very Hollywood, honestly.
yeah, I think it's very Hollywood. The actor, mm, don't kill me if I'm wrong, but I think he might be gay, Jonathan Bailey.
No,
Uh,
okay,
so I think I feel like every time it is that type of scenario with a gay male actor, you see a lot more of that than if it was a straight male actor. It might look a
sure.
little bit more wrong. But yeah, I saw that. I saw a lot of people commenting it, and I'm like, I see that all the time in like those Hollywood premieres where the actors are always sharing kisses, and who knows, they might be sharing a big, kiss scene in the movie that they had to
Mhm.
take 50 times. So they're used to just doing
Sure.
it for the movie, because it's for entertainment. It's not for love. It's like, hey, this is our job.
Right. Well, hey, it got people to click on that article and that
Yeah.
video for sure. I was
It did.
um I think the way I saw it was across a TikTok. And then people were comparing that to Holly Berry, I think, with a who is the actor that may be getting in trouble for some AI accents or something in a recent
Adrian Brody.
right. Did he have the
The
kiss? Was it Holly Berry?
Yeah,
In
so I think the one case you're talking about was at the award the Oscars,
yes.
where it
Yep.
was sort of not planned and sort of caught her by surprise.
Right.
Where,
You're
like I
right.
say, it's a little different because
Yeah.
he's a straight actor, it wasn't it's
Mhm.
just different scenarios. So like I say,
Yeah.
that's I people might destroy me for how I'm saying it, but I see two different scenarios
Mhm.
with that situation.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah. No, I'm
Mhm.
I'm an outsider looking in on it, but I just thought it was kind of funny. But hey, catches
Yeah.
attention. And then people are also making fun of it, saying like, "Oh, that's what he gets for his SNL joke that he had." And
Yeah, yeah,
it's a whole nother rabbit hole, but
uh,
it's really
uh,
funny. Yeah,
yeah.
they're
That's
a fun
why
couple.
that's why he's leaving SNL. He's like, I can't be risking anything else again
Yeah,
with my
right.
wife. I gotta be good. So I gotta
Yeah, yeah.
leave before it gets worse because the jokes were getting crazier and crazier. So,
Oh yeah. No, there's no doubt about that.
which was good
There's no
though.
doubt. Yeah, it's good entertainment. That's what
Yeah,
it's there for.
yeah.
But yeah, no, fun stuff ahead. I love it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then I think one thing you sort of put this on our agenda, shows you're watching, it's the summertime, sports are done, time to binge shows.
Mhm.
I know we've always talked about shows we always like to re-binge, Office, Parks and Rec, those type of shows. Any new shows you're watching right now that you like, would suggest?
Tires. Man.
Tires?
Yeah, I'm actually rewatching season two again.
Okay.
I'm kind of treating it like I did with The Office, Parks and Rec, How I Met Your Mother.
Hmm.
I just rewatch those quite often.
Yeah.
I think this show has a very similar vibe to that,
Hmm.
but a lot more edgier comedy
Yeah,
at times.
it does.
It's a Shane Gillis type comedy.
Hmm.
But what's cool is, most of the people on the show are his friends in real
Yeah.
life. And he's known them for years. So I think the camaraderie's are already there, and I think that's really
Mhm.
working. And then, the actor who plays Will, does
Yeah.
a phenomenal job. And then you see them in interviews in real life. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, he plays himself. Like that's
Yeah.
just who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly entertained by it. I think it's hilarious. I've had plenty of laugh out loud
Hmm.
moments. Um, you know, it, the clips I come across on TikTok for it also crack me
Yeah.
up. Um, but yeah, no, it's right in my wheelhouse for
Yeah.
comedy. And
That's good.
season two is a big uptick in
Yeah.
comparison to what season one was. Season one
Yeah.
was so good, but season two, you can really tell like
Yeah. Production went up a bit.
it did. You're exactly right. And I think it sets a good leeway into like multiple
Future.
seasons more.
Hmm.
So hopefully Netflix picks it up and
Yeah.
continues on with it. But I think the way it's being viewed, there's going to be more seasons. I think it's
Yeah.
very
I
popular.
I want to say they're already signed up for season three, probably. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I started watching it. Great. Like you say, more of that edgier comedy, which I think is making a comeback. And I think
Yep.
it's great because it really brings us back to when we were younger and the
Hmm.
comedy being just a little extra, where then it got really clean. And yeah, the dynamic between that cast, they're all friends. So yeah, it just seems like they're just hanging out for real life, not acting. It's just this is how we naturally act and talk to each other and hang out. It's just, this is like a work scenario at a tire shop. So
Yeah.
really great show. I've enjoyed watching it. I haven't finished it. But one show I've been watching that I've liked, and it's one I'm coming back to hopefully finish all, is Animal Kingdom. I don't know if you've
Oh,
seen that. It's an
mm-mm.
action drama series. It's on Netflix right now. I think it's 6 seasons, but it's
Oh,
based off a movie from, I think it was created in Australia. So it's just a family of criminals. They rob banks and they're very, secretive about it, getting away with it, and just a lot of good drama. Um, with Vera, we're watching, maybe like 1 to 2 episodes a week, on the weekends if we get a chance, watch a little bit more. But once we
mhm.
finish that series, we'll probably watch the movie to sort of see how it relates. But really good action, drama, and if you like that type of show, so it's one I've enjoyed.
Yeah, you said Animal Kingdom in Australia. I thought we were going to talk about Steve Irwin or something,
Nah.
but psych.
It's Robin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Jewelry
Robin.
heists, bank robs, right now, season two, like spoiler alert, they're gonna look at robbing a church, which is crazy.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
Uh,
Your wifey Vera here brought on
oh yeah.
Watching America's Sweetheart season two. That's the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yep.
Cheerleading. So
Yeah.
Jen binged that whole season as well.
Season two?
I will
Or
say
the last season?
it was, yes, it was on the whole time.
Yeah.
I was, of course, like, just, floating around the house, and I'm like, oh, and then I just become peeled to it, told me a little bit about the drama of this season. And evidently, Jerry Jones's daughter, not a
Hmm.
fan favorite. No,
No.
people don't really like her. So, that was some
That's
drama,
funny.
but the season seemed great. I loved putting in my input of, how crappy the Cowboys are. I thought that was a lot of fun for me. But yeah,
That's
no, I
hilarious.
think that show is the best thing Dallas has going for it in the last 30 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. I think we talked
Yeah.
about it last year when the first season came out. Because I'll be honest, I think I've watched a few clips here and there, and Vera watches it on the big screen, and I'll
Hmm.
be like, oh, that's interesting, all the drama, and it's the one reason a lot of non-Cowboy fans would go to Cowboy games or go to Cowboy training camp to watch the
Sure.
cheerleaders. I'm like,
Hmm.
give them more of a show. You'll probably get a lot more fans going in and more non-rowdy fans showing up.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly right. And I think this season, I think they took it to the Caribbean. I think
Did
they
they?
went on
Okay.
like a little destination. Don't remember that from season one.
Nah.
It's
Uh,
yeah, show's taking on
Good.
a new form and
Yeah.
hey, yeah. Hey, good job, Dallas. You
Yeah.
got
Good.
something
Good.
going.
They figured out something because who knows
Yeah,
what team will do this next, but I don't think anybody could do it bigger than the Cowboys. So yeah,
right.
I remember that show. I saw that it was out, but I was like, I never got into it, and I think Vera was watching a few other things. So, but it
Yep.
seems like she's done with those, and now she's starting this. So
Yes,
I'll be
absolutely.
watching a bit of it.
Another one that's getting a lot of attention is Love Island. And I
Okay.
kind of want to see if I should dabble into that one with Jen. See if, we liked, we would watch The Bachelor pretty often.
Okay. Yeah.
Just gonna put it out there. So, maybe this show could be, I think it's what, like people mingling, dating
Hmm.
on a
An island.
destination
Yeah.
island. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
it's getting a lot of attention, that's for sure.
It's getting a lot of attention. I saw they want r- like videos of people wanting someone to get kicked out or something. I'm curious about it. So yeah, I've always
Oh yeah.
been interested of like I see it. I don't have much time for TV. We don't because of the kiddo. So when we get a
Yeah.
chance, we try to find things we both like. So maybe it's something we'll look into. We like the drama. We like that. The
Yeah,
reality TV shows always fun, always good.
for sure. Yeah. That's why I miss Jersey Shore so much. That
Jersey.
was
Yes.
phenomenal. Yeah.
That was classic Jersey Shore. They
It
still have it,
was.
but I don't think it's the same as it was when they first started.
Yeah. I feel like I can't watch it. Yeah. It's-
Yeah.
they're not going out to the clubs and fist bumping.
Yeah. Yeah. And with kids now, I think even the Jersey Shore cast with kids now, where I mentioned, it's hard to binge watch shows with kids, but even them, it's probably hard
Mhm.
to go fist bumping with kids, you know.
Yeah, you can show the kiddos like, what it is to beat up that beat, and
Yeah.
start, rolling it out there being a Guido.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I completely agree. With the kiddos, usually it's like we get, our son to sleep and then, our daughter is still up and everything. And it's like, man, our one chance to try to watch a show, can't really do
Hmm.
it because,
Yeah.
you're still on parent duty. So
Yeah.
I feel the pain. I agree. But when you can ever fit it in there,
Yeah.
just watching a show, it's
Yeah.
it's valuable time to take advantage of.
Yeah. Every now and then we get the chance, but yeah, it gets hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's movie recaps, shows. Like I say, if you guys know of any other shows to binge watch, just start watching
Mhm.
season one. If there are already 8 seasons, just some we could start. Might take us a little longer to watch it, but we're always interested in hearing and seeing some of that. But yeah, thank you to everybody listening, everybody that joined us on our live. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. Get those alerts when we put out new shows, new clips, and then also we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So hit that follow so you get alerts when we release new episodes on there. And as always, leave your comments. We enjoy engaging in those comments. We'll enjoy that back and forth. Like I say, our banter is always friendly banter. We'll listen to it. We'll admit when we're wrong, but it's fun for us.
Always fun.
Yeah.
Love the engagement, good or for bad. Going at us for our takes. It's
Yes.
exactly what it's there for. Friendly banter. And then quick shout out, John. We did pass 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Did we hit it
So
today or?
we did.
Yeah, nice.
Big
Yes,
congrats. Love it.
1K. That's a big
1K.
accomplishment for us. So thank you to all those listening, subscribing. We appreciate it. Like I say, 1K within, I think we're almost at a year, so that's not too bad. Hopefully we
10
can start
months. Yep.
doubling, tripling it quicker. But we thank you to those that are listening, those of you that suggest us to others, and just following our socials, watching the clips, because I think that's how we also get to you, to a lot of our people that like the show and like our content.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Continue to do this weekly, daily clips.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for watching as always.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy your week
So
ahead.
yeah,
Enjoy the
enjoy your
movies.
week. Yeah. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.